All right, it's now 3 o'clock. Chad here. What's going on, my friend? Scoot had 23 points on 10 and 14 shooting last night. Denny Avia added 18. Trailblazers topped Razio Farm 111 to 100. That preseason finale coming up tomorrow night at Motor Center. Utah Jazz are in town. Chris Burkhart will have Blazers game day starting at 5, tip-off at 7. Season opener Wednesday night against Steph and the Warriors. Tickets available at trailblazers.com. T-shirt night with a fan-inspired giveaway for all. Thursday night football on Prime. Broncos at the Saints. Denver is favored by 3. ALCS game 3 and Cleveland Yankees lead 1-0 top of the third. And the Oregon Ducks will take on Purdue tomorrow night. And Ducks are favored by 27.5. Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad's coming up next. Ben Gulliver will join the show at 3:20 for an NBA preview. And then our good friend Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, going to stop by in studio at 5.
8 seconds remaining in the fourth quarter of Game 3. 4 seconds. Ionescu will heave and hit! And hit! Sabrina Ionescu with the biggest shot in Liberty history.
The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad, presented by Lazy Boy. What is your strategy for comfort?
The 0-1 is hit high and deep right field. If it's fair, it's gone, and that one is fair. And a home run, a towering home run into the second deck for Shohei Ohtani. A 3-run homer, and the Dodgers have blown it open. It's now 7-0.
But there's a steal by Scoot Henderson. Read that pass perfectly. The drive, the lob to Donovan Clingan, and Kling Kong stuffs it home. 109.98 on the beautiful feed from Scoot Henderson to Donovan Clingan.
Strap in. The Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad starts now.
All right, setting the update that the Yankees had a 1-0 lead, top of 3 in Cleveland. They did, and the Indians have responded with a 2-run homer, bottom of 3. They now have a 2-1 lead on the Yanks, trying to get in the series. They went back home down 2-0, so we'll see what the Indians are able to do today.
Yeah, Kyle Manzardo hit one into the right field bleachers.
All right, Godfather, you heard the highlight in the show open today. That Sabrina Ionescu shot last night for the Liberty was awesome, but when she took the shot, the way she set it up and dribbled and did her little step back, I felt like she learned that move from Dame. It had a very much a Dame feel to the way she set it up and delivered that shot.
Yeah, it was very similar to where he likes shooting those shots, too. She got enough air to get it away and not be bothered. I mean, it's a 28-foot shot in a tie game. It's the kind of shot like Dame used to make, where if you don't make it, it's like, what are you doing? It's a tied game. Get a better shot. But she made it, so it's a great shot.
She's super cool, and she's got game. She's awesome.
Yeah. She didn't overly celebrate. She made it, walked off the court like, yeah, I've done that before. And she has, so good for her.
All right. Ben Gulliver, Washington Post, knows the NBA extremely well. He's going to join us in 20 minutes. It'll be nice to catch up with Benny G.
Haven't talked to him in a while.
And then Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio in studio again at 5. And I found out I got good news today because I hit him up. I said, dude, how long are you going to be in town for? When are you leaving? Is it this week? And he goes, actually, we've extended our trip out to November 3rd. So he has agreed to not only come in next week, but the week before he leaves, he's going to come in and spend an entire 3 hours with us in the show. And hang out. So Brian Noe.
Holy cow.
I love Brian Noe because he never turns down an opportunity to run his mouth. He's ready to work and do whatever it takes to make great radio, and I respect that a great deal.
That's not a polite way to say it.
I'm just saying, I know a lot of guys in the business that they talk a big game, but when it comes to work, they really don't want to get dirty. Brian Noe, he'll talk sports with you anytime. So Noe going to be in studio today at 5. We have a lot to talk about football-wise. Unfortunately, the anemic offense of the Denver Broncos will be on Prime TV tonight, so I'd like to apologize for anyone that's going to watch the game. And we'll see if Bo Nix is able to eclipse the 0.0 quarterback rating he had at halftime last week against the Chargers. I hope that's the case. Come on, Sean. You're going back home. Can we maybe a trick play, maybe a few wrinkles in the offense to get things going? Back in front of your old fans there in New Orleans, something, please.
You're really hard on these guys.
Gosh, because they stink to high heaven. I got to watch that crap. I don't need 0.0 from my quarterback at halftime. I just want the genius Sean Payton to be a genius and draw up some plays for us. The game last night. So I found this out before the game. We knew there were going to be scouts on hand with a couple of lottery players in action. Ben Zaraf, who is the Israeli, and then also Noah and Singay. They were both in action last night. Over 50 scouts on hand at Moda Center. I don't know if they've had a game with that many scouts in attendance at one time. And kind of a unique situation to have a preseason game where you can bring a team over from Germany and have 2 lottery picks where you get a chance to scout them in-house, which was pretty cool. But what I like about the game, back-to-back performances from Scoot Henderson after that stinker he put up in the opener against the Clippers where he's looked strong. 23 points, 10 of 14, and he was really the aggressor down the stretch that helped create the separation for Portland to get the win. But I like that, and I need to see more of that from Scoot. I was nervous after that game against the Clippers, but he was really strong against Sacramento, and another good performance last night where, I don't think he had a turnover last night. So just 1 turnover in the last 2 games for Scoot. Wow. As we get ready to end the preseason. That's huge because he had 7 in the opener against Seattle.
That's big, real big.
And 18 from Denny Avia. He looks pretty smooth, Godfather. He's still trying to fill out his team and his teammates, but he's strong. I like his body control, and I'm just excited to watch him play because I think he's smart and he can do a lot of things to help the team. And I don't know what it is. I don't know if he went through a growth spurt or if he was hitting the gym or maybe a combination of both, but Tamani Kamara looks big to me. He looks like a different human being this year. Like he's really put in the time to work on his body. So physically he looks good, and offensively he looks a lot more in tune with what they need from him. So I have some pretty good expectations for Tamani, but it was nice to see the guys on the floor. But, those preseason games, you have different guys in and out of the lineup. You're playing a team in Germany. I don't know how serious you can take a game like that. Yeah. So you get some of the sloppiness that you see in the preseason, which is expected. It makes for a rougher watch. That's all.
Yeah, but I would just say, I don't care who you're playing. If you play well, that's all good. And I mean, like for Scoot, that's a step for him. I'm sorry, I know you're playing against a JV team of some sort, but by the same token, no turnovers, score the ball late in the game, take charge, be a leader. Those things are important. I don't care who you play.
And he was doing a better job of finishing at the rim. And I'll say this about Scoot, Godfather. You don't see it all the time based on what he's doing on the floor, but when he's in a position on the break or in traffic to elevate and attack the rim, he's very much an athlete. He's got a strong body. He can get up.
He's explosive. And that's what they said about him before they drafted him. Very explosive. And it's nice he's getting himself in a position to show that.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times last year we didn't see it.
Well, it was your type of game, at least in the way that Ratio Farm plays basketball. The ball movement and the player movement. You can see and feel the Euro style. Even Chauncey mentioned the ball movement after the game, but I've never seen anything like it in terms of stats in my lifetime watching a basketball game. So Ratio Farm they went over a quarter where they did not make a 2-point bucket. In the third quarter alone, they scored 29 points, outscoring the Trailblazers in the third when they made their comeback. 27 of the 29 were on three-pointers that were made. The other 2 were from free throws. For the game, was plus 45 at the three-point line, but Portland made up the difference in the paint where they were plus 60, 78-18 edge in the paint because the Trailblazers were just bigger at almost every position. But that is the true analytics wet dream right there, Godfather, where we're shooting threes or we're going to get to the free throw line. Like Daryl Morey, that's his type of game. That's the way plays, and that's the way they play a lot in Euro. But the ball movement was there, and they were able to stay in the game with a three-point shot.
So I take it they were getting open threes, good threes.
Yeah, and the Blazers were helping, and the ball reversal was creating open shots.
Yeah.
And that's how that was going down.
Yeah. Well, the European teams are always very disciplined in their approach and move the ball, move bodies. It's a little alarming they could get that many good threes.
Yeah.
That would be alarming.
Well, I think the other part, too, and I think maybe Michael Holton mentioned this, but the Blazers only with 5 threes last night. I mean, if you look at the roster seriously, like, where is the consistent three-point shooting going to come from?
Yeah.
If Tamani Kamara is not that guy, maybe he's improved enough. We know Ant can shoot the three. We know Jeremy Grant, more of a streak shooter, but he can knock down the occasional three. And Denny Avi, I think, is a a legitimate three-point shooter. But outside of that, where's that three-point shooting going to come from?
Yeah,
I
not
don't
a lot of it off the bench either. It doesn't appear.
Yeah. The other thing I've noticed, too, with the young guys, so this would include Ryan Rupert. We saw it with Chris Murray last night. People forget, but those guys got so much playing time last year with all the injuries and the people that were in and out of the lineup that they're coming into year number 2, I think, with an advantage over a lot of young players in the NBA from the standpoint that they got a ton of playing time, like big-time playing minutes, starting minutes, and they had a chance to finish games and be in some big spots. We're seeing that in some cases those guys are a bit ahead of the curve in terms of development. So at least if they have injuries or Chauncey needs to give a spell to someone, he knows what he can get out of some of those guys, whether it be Tamani or Chris Murray or even Ryan Rupert, who's still developing, but he's got great length and, can be a factor on defense. So it'll be interesting to see how that continues to play out over the course of time. But don't you think that Tamani, with the injuries to with Williams out and, of course, the injury to Shaedon Sharpe, I don't know how you keep Tamani Kamara out of the starting lineup to begin the year. I wonder if he might consider starting Tamani just because of how well he's played. He's been the best trailblazer on the floor, and I'm just going back to what he said to us at Media Day. The players will decide. Mm-hmm. Well, if that's true, then Tamani has put the onus on the coaches to put him in the starting lineup because of how he's played.
Where would you play him?
I'd play him at guard.
Really? That's a big guard right there.
You could play him at guard or you could play him at forward. I'm just trying to think of who you take off. Do you take Advia off the floor?
No.
That'd be hard to do because he can do everything. Would you take Grant off the floor? They're not going to do that. So would you consider taking Scoot off the floor and starting Tamani next to Ant?
No. Scoot's your future. You got to play him and get as many minutes as you can.
I agree. But going back to what Chauncey said,
I know.
The players will decide. Hey, Tamani's been the best Blazer through preseason so far. He really has. So we'll see how that works. I'm just curious to see how Chauncey will handle that because that's what they were talking about.
Yeah.
We didn't come up with that. They did.
Yeah.
And he made a point to make sure he emphasized that to us.
Yeah.
Well, if that's true, Tamani has proven that his play has been worthy of starters' minutes based on what his philosophy was going into the season.
Okay. Last exhibition game is Friday.
Yeah.
The Jazz are in town. You expect more of these injured guys to play? It's their last chance before the season starts.
From what I heard, so there were multiple guys out last night. So Jeremy Grant was out, just rest. Ant is out. I think his ankle's ready. They're not concerned about that anyway, so I expect him to play. So Grant and Ant, I expect to play. Jabari was out for rest. I expect him to play. And then who was the fourth? I expect Matisse.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Matisse. I expect him to play. All four of those guys, Robert Williams and Shaedon, are making progress, but not yet. Sharpe is coming along quickly off his injury. So what looked to be really bad when it came out, based on what he's been doing at the practice facility, they feel pretty good about where Sharpe's at. And then with Williams, I don't think it's going to be an extended injury either. I just think you got to be careful with him based on his history.
Obviously, yeah.
Because
he's been hurt.
He's been hurt. And he might be a piece that you might look to move at some point, and you don't want damaged goods there. All right, it's time to talk more basketball. Brian Noe. I guess we can talk hoops with Brian Noe, but that's not as much fun. We use Bronny James. We'll get to that next on the Rip City Drive. Well, Dwight and you and I were talking about this just a couple of moments ago. Of all the guests that we have on, there's few that are more reliable and dependable than the great Ben Golliver. Wouldn't you agree with that?
I would agree, and I would say when he gets on the air, he's pretty reliable and good, too.
He's money. He's one of our favorites, and you know him from his time in Portland, but he's with the Washington Post now, killing it. He's back on the show. What's up, Benny G?
Not much, guys. The greatest ability is availability. I aim to please, aim to serve. How are you guys doing?
Oh, dude, it's so great to have you back on and get a chance to talk some ball with you as we get ready for another brand new season. I know you're excited about it because there's so many different things that are going on. So let's start with this, with the big trade that went down not too long ago. Why did Minnesota want to get rid of Towns? Is it salary reasons or is there something else there?
Well, get this. They cut about $6 million in salary from this trade, but because of where they sit in the second apron with all the penalties that are involved, they actually saved almost $50 million in real money by just cutting that $6 million, in payroll. So that just tells you how punitive the penalties are when you run up that huge kind of bill. You can almost look at it like they're getting Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo back for free when they're saving $50 million, right? So it was all about cutting the money now and also making themselves a little bit more flexible in the future. Karl Anthony Towns is a good player. I'd say he's about a top 30, 35 player in the NBA, but he has one of the worst contracts in the league. They already have huge contracts going out to Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert, so they just had to get themselves off that big third contract. It's something we've seen a lot across the league, the idea that in the new salary cap environment, you can't have three max players on the same team and expect to really be able to build out a roster. The Phoenix Suns ran into that problem. You remember how bad they were in the playoffs because their big three, Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant, and Devin Booker, were making all the money so that they just threw out a bunch of bums around them and nothing really worked, right? So that's where we're going with this. I mean, pretty much every team is going to have two big salaries and supporting cast guys around them. That's the new model, and Minnesota had to kind of keep up with the Joneses on that.
By the way, since we're talking about that trade, who won that trade, Ben?
Well, it's one of those, it's like, I don't know if anybody won. It's like, who lost less? I think, who actually won, though? The media. Because the idea that the New York Knicks are going to be the biggest story coming into this season, a massive fan base, obviously a huge city in New York City, the expectations of them trying to compete for championships. I saw Vegas had them as one of the highest over-unders in the league. Even though they, ran themselves in the ground last year just to get 50 wins, Vegas thinks they might get 55 this year. They've got Mitchell Robinson's currently injured. Karl Anthony Towns is an injury risk. OG Anunoby misses 25 games like clockwork, season after season after season, right? Their whole team will fall apart if Brunson twists an ankle and misses 2 games. They have nothing else in terms of initiation besides him. So I think the media wins because you get this nice, juicy target in a big market that we can all kind of nitpick to death. I think when they are healthy, when they're all together, they're going to have one of the NBA's best offenses. They're going to be shooting the 3 ball like crazy. They're going to have amazing spacing. So I kind of like the gamble from them, but it was very expensive. I don't know if you can really call it a win to take on one of the most expensive contracts in the league for a guy in Karl Anthony Towns who really has a pretty limited playoff resume. I mean, if you go back to last year's playoffs, if you're the Knicks, you're trying to win a title. At least you're trying to make it to the finals because you haven't done that in decades, right? And you look at Karl Anthony Towns in the playoffs. He had a few moments defensively last year against Nikola Jokic, but he fell to pieces in the Western Conference Finals. He couldn't hit a shot. For a guy who calls himself the best shooting big man in NBA history, he sure didn't show it when the lights were bright. And the lights are always going to be bright in New York, so I think he's got another thing coming.
All right. I think the NBA's gotten what they wanted, which was parity. So when you look at the Western Conference, who's the favorite?
Oklahoma City Thunder. I think they've got the deepest team. I think they've got the best collection of young talent. They have the most flexibility to add to their group. They have an MVP caliber leader in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I think they've got Chet Holmgren, who could be a Defensive Player of the Year candidate this season. I thought he should have gotten more attention last year, given how good their team defense was and how good he is at protecting the paint and protecting the rim. They just kind of have it all. They play very modern. They play very hard. Now, they shoot a lot of threes, and you can live by the 3 and die by the 3. That could come back to bite them, but I would way rather have their roster than anybody else's roster in the Western Conference. They made some nice additions with Alex Caruso and Isaiah Hartenstein. I bring those guys up because, living here in L.A., the Lakers fans still wish they had Caruso, and the Clippers fans still wish they had Isaiah Hartenstein. It's been years since those guys played for them, right? They're those kind of role players that get you excited, that kind of make the team better, that make winning plays in big moments, and that are really, unselfish and trying to help the group as opposed to trying to get their own numbers. So a very clear identity for Oklahoma City. We'll see how they handle the pressure. They're not used to everybody talking about them. They love to fly under the radar, but I think this is a really, really good team. And I think that, people like to write them off and say, oh, they could win the West, but they're not going to, the number one seed, but they're not going to go deep in the playoffs. I disagree. I think this is a team that has a lot of playoff-ready pieces, and I think they could make the finals this year.
Wow. A lot of people, Denver just won it, a year ago, basically. People are writing him off now. I don't know if that has something to do with Jamal Murray and his seemingly dissension. What do you see with Denver, and where would you rank them in the West?
Well, these guys are just bleeding talent left and right. I mean, they've kept Murray, they've kept Porter, they've kept Gordon, but they pretty much lose everybody else who's been helping them. And so I think they have to take a step back in the standings this year compared to last year. Now, obviously, Joker's the best player in the game. And that's not going to change. But as the playoffs unfolded last year, it was hard to watch the Nuggets, Dwight, because he would create all these beautiful scoring opportunities for guys who are cutting to the basket. He'd create wide-open three-pointers. And guess what? His teammates would just brick the layups and brick the jumpers, And so even though it's this, beautiful, carnival to watch Joker play and to orchestrate, it starts to be, kind of painful to watch his teammates let him down. And that was really the sensation I had as they blew that huge Game 7 lead against Minnesota. It's like, can he get any help? That starts with Murray. I mean, Murray was horrible during the Paris Olympics. I mean, it really got under-discussed and underplayed, but, he kind of got benched. He didn't really play that many minutes. You never would have guessed he was a star-level NBA player based on how he was playing for Canada during the Paris Olympics, and it was a similar deal in last year's playoffs. He really wasn't the same. He hit a couple of big game-winning shots, but he could not crank it up when they really needed him against the Minnesota Timberwolves. So I think he's a huge question mark. I think this is a team that can still win 50 games, that can still be, a 3, 4, 5 seed in the Western Conference, but I don't think they have enough depth of talent as it is to get to the finals. I just don't think that they've got enough. They really missed Kentavious Caldwell-Pope as a perimeter defender. They missed Bruce Brown coming off their bench as an energizer guy. And Russell Westbrook is just not the answer to those kinds of problems, right? The more you rely on Russell Westbrook at this stage of his career, the more you're just talking yourself into a bad idea.
Just a quick question about their coach. Michael Malone made a rather pointed comment about players' conditioning during training camp, and he just looks to me like a guy who might be wearing out his welcome in Denver. Have you heard anything about that?
Well, look, he's never afraid to speak his mind. There's no question about it. I think that there's been some tension there between the front office vision and the coaching vision, right? Because you know what the coaches want? The coaches want veteran guys who have done it before, who they can trust. And the front office is saying, no, we want to go cheaper, right? We want to cut payroll. We want to let Kentavious Caldwell-Pope go. We want to try to play some of these younger guys. And the problem that Denver has run into, none of their young guys can play. Christian Brown's done stuff, here and there. He was big during the finals run, but in a very small role. Peyton Watson had some moments last season, but he's not great. They just don't have enough players that Michael Malone can trust. And I really think that's the genesis of a lot of his frustration, Dwight, is why are all my good players landing on other teams? Why aren't we spending money like Minnesota or like Boston or like Phoenix? Why does Denver win the championship and then have to watch all these players go out the door? And if you're the front office, I mean, really what you're doing is you're just covering for ownership, right? And you're saying, well, look, these are financial decisions we have to make. The coach doesn't want to hear it. And I don't see that, that animosity going away anytime soon. I think it's going to be a recurring problem all season long. Just like I get sick of watching Jokic's teammates blow his assists, I think Michael Malone gets just as sick watching the same thing.
We're talking with Ben Golliver, Washington Post here on the Rip City Drive. What is the Lakers' plan, their true plan, going to be with Bronny this year?
Well, I mean, hopefully it's sort of like his plan at USC, one and done, right? I mean, that's what I would do. Get him out there for one game, have the great moment. I think it will be a really, really cool moment to have a father and son. I mean, people like to make fun of it, but it is historic in its own way. I don't think we can confuse this with Ken Griffey Sr. and Ken Griffey Jr. That would be a big disrespect to Ken Griffey Jr., I think, when we're talking about the greatness of athletes and that kind of thing. But it will be a great made-for-television moment. It'll be a great moment for that family. But he's just not ready to play in the NBA on a night-in, night-out basis. I mean, his preseason numbers have been very rough. He had a really hard time during Summer League. He's just not ready, right? And I don't think anybody besides the Lakers would have drafted him this year based on just where he is in his development as a player. So I would like to see him playing a lot in the G League, work his way up from there. He seems very committed to his craft. Like, there's nothing you could say negative about Bronny's personality. I've never heard anyone say a negative thing about Bronny's personality or his commitment to the game. And so, I think he would fit in that developmental environment. He would embrace the opportunity, try to get better, work on his game, and we'll see where he ends up. But I just don't think he can be a part of the Lakers' plan because they want to go to the playoffs. And you can't just be, throwing guys out there who aren't ready to play if you want to make the playoffs.
Ben, what do you expect from the Trailblazers this season?
Well, I got to say, I think Chauncey Billups is on the hottest seat in the NBA, isn't he? I mean, when you look at the other teams that have really struggled, Charlotte's got a brand new coach. Washington's got a brand new coach. Detroit's got a brand new coach. I mean, that kind of says it all. Like, one of these things isn't like the other. The Blazers had a horrible season last year going 21-62. They did not have a lot of cause for optimism coming out of the season, and they did not change coaches. So I look at Chauncey Billups, and I think he's just on the hot seat no matter what, and that could be a very challenging dynamic for both the coach and for a young team. To me, that's just really lacking in leaders. I would love to see somebody step forward as the leader of this group. Maybe it can be Simons if he's healthier. Maybe it can be DeAndre Ayton now that he's been able to purchase himself a bed and hopefully got some ice-friendly shoes and maybe a car with some chains. That would be a great thing if he could step forward as a real leader of this group. But to me, it just kind of seems like an aimless group that is just kind of waiting for some of these young guys to hit rather than having a plan to really help them hit. I will be very concerned if Scoot Henderson does not show major progress from year one to year two, because his development should have been the top organizational goal of this offseason. Why wasn't he at Summer League? I have no idea. His preseason tape to me has not been incredibly promising from the little that I've seen. I want to see a big jump from year one to year two because I have very high hopes for Scoot Henderson as a player, but I just haven't seen it pan out yet. So if there's no development, if he doesn't come back as a much better player in his second season, to me that says something about the coaching staff and it says something about that front office too.
Hey, Ben, what are the Spurs going to do this year? Are they going to actually try and win, or are they just going to tank again?
Well, they can't tank again, man. Unless they put Wemby in bubble wrap or something. He's too good. He's going to screw up any tank plan you've got. He, to me, was one of the most impressive players at the Paris Olympics. Everybody remembers Steph hitting all those three-pointers in the gold medal game, right? Do you know who had the most points in the gold medal game? It was Victor Wembanyama. He's 20 years old. He outscored everybody on Team USA individually. So his offensive game has really come along. He's added some strength. They've got him a few veterans. Chris Paul will know how to set him up. Harrison Barnes will create some space and knock down some shots. And I think Wemby's basically going to do the rest. I think that they're going to be in position to challenge for the play-in tournament. I don't know if they'll get there. It could be sort of like Houston last year where they just wind up coming up a little bit short and are on the outside looking in. But I do not think they're going to be one of the worst teams in the West. I think that they're going to jump up a level from that. And I think 90% of the credit is going to go to Victor Wembanyama.
Okay, we haven't asked you about the Eastern Conference yet, and I don't think it's a big deal because I think you're going to say Boston again, right?
Yeah, I mean, look, they look pretty invincible on paper. It never really plays out that way. I mean, something usually goes wrong, right? Yeah. Either Horford gets old or Kristaps Porzingis can't stay healthy. Somebody has a championship hangover season. But I think on paper, coming into this season, they're the team best positioned to repeat as champions since the Golden State Warriors actually did it in 2017 and 2018. I just think by bringing back their entire rotation, by having their main guys still in their prime years, that's Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, they're both on the upswing, by having such a great depth of defensive talent and by playing so hard together on that end, while also having a very clear philosophy on offense where they just create a lot of three-pointers and they have a lot of really, really good three-point shooters on that team. They're just locked in. And they were so dominant last year, I don't know if they got enough credit for it. I mean, there's only been two teams that are more dominant in the NBA's three-point era than the Celtics last year. That was actually the 1996 Chicago Bulls with Michael Jordan and the 2017 Warriors with Steph Curry and Kevin Durant. And you look with both those teams, they actually came back and won the championship the next season. So I think Boston's got to be viewed as the clear favorite to repeat. They're going to have a tougher task, though. I mean, they had one of the easiest cakewalks we've ever seen in terms of who they played in the playoffs. I mean, they got Miami without Jimmy Butler, Cleveland without Donovan Mitchell, really, Indiana without Tyrese Halliburton, really. I mean, they didn't have to face Giannis. They didn't have to face Embiid. They didn't have to face Jokic. I think it's going to be tougher this season, but I think they're ready for it. I think they can easily win 60 games again. I think they're in a great groove. They've just been smacking teams during the preseason. They look like they're motivated, and I think that all adds up to making them the favorites.
All right, one final question for you. What did you think about Sabrina's deep shot last night?
My goodness. My goodness. It was big time. And this has been a great WNBA Finals series. They really can't ask for much more because the teams like Minnesota, even though they're the underdog, they kind of have New York's number. Like, they can frustrate Brianna Stewart better than almost anybody I've seen.
Yeah.
And Collier for Minnesota, to me, looks like the best player in the world throughout these playoffs, right? So they are just such an interesting foil. But New York has more total talent. They have more buttons they can push. They can beat you in more ways. And what you saw late in that game was Sabrina said, you want Collier to take away Brianna Stewart. Okay, well, let me go one-on-one, and I'll hit one from 30 right in your eye. It looked exactly like Luka Doncic's shot in Minnesota during the playoffs that I saw up there at the Target Center. And you got to feel bad for those Minnesota fans because they show up. They're told to put on the white T-shirts for the whiteout. They all put the T-shirts on. They're really excited to do the whiteout, and then they just wind up getting a three-pointer, breaking their heart in the last seconds in both the NBA playoffs and the WNBA Finals. I mean, it doesn't get much more painful than that for a city that hasn't had a lot to get excited about sports-wise over these last few years.
All right, Ben Golliver, Washington Post here on the Rip City Drive. Ben, as always, awesome. We appreciate the time, and we look forward to talking with you in the future.
All right, guys, take care. Good luck this season. What do you think is going to happen? How many wins for Portland?
Well, we think that they have their eyes on the Cooper Flag sweepstakes, so we're thinking somewhere between 15 and 20.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah.
I mean, don't you think it would be foolish not to put yourself in a position to try and land him?
It's all you got, Chad. It's all you got. That's the North Star, Cooper Flag.
There you go. Capture the flag, baby. That's what it's all about.
I'm going to go see him here in about a month, so I can report back. He's going to be playing in Vegas against Kansas. So,
well, dude, last time
hopefully he goes for.
Ben, last time we talked to you about him when you saw him in those prelims for the Olympics, I mean, my mouth was watering because you said he was unbelievable.
Oh, he was ridiculous. That's the thing, Chad. I mean, it's not like an accident. I'm going to see him. Like we got to stay on the Cooper Flag beat here. This guy's pretty good, This guy can really play, and he's going to change a team. And I think what you're going to see is it's going to be a real race to get into the bottom four this year because you've got Portland, you've got Washington, you've got Brooklyn. They have to be in the bottom four, right? But that leaves out Detroit, who is just atrocious. And it also leaves out the Utah Jazz. And Danny Ainge is smart enough to realize he should get Cooper Flag. Like, this guy knows what he's doing, right? So he can push some levers and some buttons to make sure they're in the mix, too. So I think you're going to see, probably 7 teams trying hard to be in that bottom four. It could get ugly there in March and April. But, nobody's better at ugly March basketball than these Portland Trailblazers, right? I mean, they pull the plug so early. It's amazing. I think it's going to be a lot more of that this season.
All right, Ben, we appreciate it, buddy.
All right, guys.
There you go. Ben Golliver. I mean, I see it the same way. Like in the East, it would be a disappointment if you're a Celtics fan if they don't repeat with the entire rotation coming back.
Yeah.
They're that good.
That's why you bring everybody back.
And you can't argue that the additions of Hartenstein and Caruso is only going to make Oklahoma City even more dangerous.
Yeah.
And we like their coach and the way they play.
Yeah. And we like Caruso, both of us do. Tenacious defender, and he'll make a big shot for you, too.
I told you, I didn't think it was going to happen, but Chet Holmgren has started a renaissance of white guys, American-born white dudes, returning to the NBA for dominance, and Cooper Flag is on his way, the next Larry Bird. Never thought I'd see the day. It's happening.
Yeah.
White guys dominating basketball again. It's amazing, Godfather. All right, when we come back, the Tom Brady rules. How much of an impact is that going to have on his broadcasting? We'll discuss. I love Steve Winwood. I've always wanted to see him in concert, and that has not happened yet in my life. Didn't you see him in concert, Shacker?
No, it was a COVID cancellation.
Oh, cancellation. So typical.
I hate it when that happens. You think you're going to a concert and then they cancel.
Yeah, you get punked. Absolutely punked. And by the way, that home run by Ohtani last night was ridiculous.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was fair or not. I just know it went a long ways.
Yeah, I think that helped call it fair. It went so far, it's like, it's fair. It's close enough.
And then he had that foul tip off the bottom of his bat, and the ball bounced right straight up into his schlong. Just unbelievable. I don't know how he didn't just fall down and die right there. I expected to see him on the injury report, Ohtani out, parentheses, crank, or something like that.
Yeah.
Right off the tip of it, Godfather.
Well,
I don't care what he's got in. I don't care if you got a cup or what you got for protection there. You take a foul tip straight off the dong, and bad things are going to happen. Respect to Ohtani for recovering from that straight shot on and then hitting that home run. That shows the type of man he is. It's incredible. I don't understand how the baseball players experience that type of pain and keep going. It's wild to me. A foul tip, which you've taken before they hurt, right?
Yeah, I would say as a DH, chances are limited that he was wearing a cup because it usually comes into play on defense. You know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
Usually when you're hitting, you're not going to take one there.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of guys don't like wearing them, which I don't understand. Start wearing it when you're younger and get used to it. To go on a baseball field without a cup is crazy.
Well, for some guys, I forgot who was the baseball player who used to play for the Twins. He's like, I got a lot going on down there. Sometimes the cup can be inhibiting depending on who you are.
Yeah, I suppose.
Now, for me, putting a little Tic Tac inside of that little cup is not a problem. But for some guys, I could see it being an issue.
Yeah. So you didn't need the extra large size.
No, I did not. Saying? No. All right. In fact, that reminds me, my dad's best friend, pharmacist. He's retired now, but he used to love doing that when guys would come in back in the day at the old pharmacy. Where are your condoms at? And he'd always be like, well, what size? He would do that just to see what the response would be.
No. But every guy had to say, I would take the XL.
Well, in that situation, can you say, well, small? You can't do that, right?
Take the mini.
Yeah, mini, please. I'm kind of a schmedium. All right, we got the Tom Brady restrictions. He's now officially a minority owner with the Las Vegas Raiders.
10%, they're saying.
It's got to be painful. We heard from Raider Mike, like the worst case scenario, the guy that's responsible for the tuck rule that happened against your team is now a minority owner of the franchise. But because of that, he's got a lot of restrictions on him, and he's broadcasting for Fox. Here are the restrictions for Tom Brady as minority owner of the Raiders. Not permitted to be in another team's facility. Not permitted to witness practice. Not permitted to attend broadcast production meetings either in person or virtually. That's unbelievable. Prohibited from publicly criticizing game officials and other clubs.
Ooh.
Subject to the NFL's gambling policy. And subject to the NFL's anti-tampering policy. That's a lot of restrictions on a guy who's doing network broadcasts for Fox. He is their number one analyst working with Kevin Burkhardt.
Can you imagine how careful he's going to have to be during broadcasts?
Well, that's what I want to ask you about.
Wow.
When it says prohibited from publicly criticizing game officials and other clubs. So if he's on the air doing a broadcast, and let's say he's doing a game like Troy Aikman was the other night in New York where you have 22 accepted penalties, and you truly believe as a broadcaster that the officials have been awful, or if there's a call that's egregious, can he not criticize them for sucking?
I don't think he can say a word. I was thinking about that earlier, Chad. You can't even say, that looked like roughing the passer. You know, I mean, it looked like the guy, wasn't that offsides?
So they would apply this to him even when he's on air.
That's what it is. Publicly criticizing means on the air.
Well, I know that, but they won't give him an exception for doing his job on the broadcast. They're going to apply the rules to him at all times.
He's an owner.
But that's what I'm asking you. They'll apply this to him at all times.
Well, I think that's what it's all about. Yeah, they're making it known. These are the restrictions. If you want to be an owner and then broadcast games, here are the ground rules.
Okay. So he's also not permitted to criticize other clubs.
Yeah.
So if that means the Jets or some team like the Browns.
Yeah. Try broadcasting a Browns game without being critical.
So that means he can't call them out for being poor.
Yeah, that's a lousy contract they sure gave that quarterback of theirs. You can't say that.
But would that be considered criticism of another club in his position?
I think so.
Well, how can you do your job? Ultimately, how can you be the type of broadcaster you need to be if you can't do your job? Plus, he's not allowed to be at the production meetings.
Yeah.
I think it was, wasn't it Madden who originally wanted to be at practice and be a part of the production meetings so that he could gain a better understanding of the teams and be able to broadcast better, right?
Yeah. And those are pretty much off-the-record meetings where they tell you stuff about their team and their roster, but you can't run on TV and tell them. But it gives you the background to be able to talk intelligently about what's going on. And they're, I mean, if I were his network, I'd be a little worried about all those restrictions.
Especially for a guy that's never broadcasted before.
Yeah.
So now I'm assuming what? So Burkhart will be able to be at the production meetings and go to practice. Mm-hmm. So does he give Burkhart, like, hey, find out what you can about this, this, and this? So he gives questions that he wants answers to Burkhart, and then Burkhart can relay that back to him.
You would assume that, yeah.
But any of those little things you were talking about that Burkhart picks up on in the production meetings or practice, those are things that Burkhart would have to bring up. Like, he can't give information to Brady and have Brady weave that into the broadcast, right? Wouldn't that be weird?
Right. Yeah, it would be. And the teams will know when that happens. The only thing I would say is he can make it look like it's something that just popped into his mind, like, oh, wow, they surprised me with that double reverse, where actually they didn't because he heard from Burkhart that they might try that play.
Well, my guess, too, would be there might be other owners in the league who aren't thrilled about Tom Brady being a minority owner with the Raiders.
There are.
And being a broadcaster.
Yeah.
So they might be watching him like a hawk.
Yeah.
Looking to hammer on him for that kind of stuff.
Well, I think if you're in that division with Las Vegas, you're not excited about Brady becoming an owner because you think he might help them. Brady's advice in that office, I think, is very valuable. And that's why I think a lot of teams would have liked to have had him, on retainer, so to speak, with their team. He would tell you what quarterbacks are good, what receivers are good. There's a lot of information. Look, he's one of the smartest guys to ever play the game. Right? I mean, I don't think there's any doubt.
There's no question about that. He is one of the smartest players to play the game. Whether you like him or not, you got to acknowledge that he's super sharp. Yeah. All right, we'll keep things rolling. Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio in studio for the 5 o'clock hour. That's going to be awesome. When we come back, oh, gosh.
What?
And we'll take a quick look. Sean Payton going back to New Orleans.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a little mad at Sean Payton right now and the Broncos in general, but we'll hear from Payton, who's making a return to New Orleans, what to expect with Thursday Night Football, Broncos and Saints. And then coming up at 4:20, we'll talk about Sabrina, and then we're going to hear from Mike Tomlin, and we'll discuss that decision to go to Russ and bench Justin Fields. Is that the right call? You got the Rip City Drive. Hey, what's up? 4 o'clock chat here. Scoot, 23 points on 10 of 14 shooting last night. Denny Avia in his Moda debut, 18. Trailblazers over Watsio Farm, 111 to 100. Preseason finale is coming up tomorrow night in Moda against the Utah Jazz. Chris Burkhardt will have Blazers game day starting at 5 with the tip-off at 7. Season opener Wednesday night with Steph and the Warriors in town. Tickets are available at trailblazers.com. It'll be a T-shirt night. Fan-inspired giveaway for everyone. You can be there. Just go to trailblazers.com. Thursday Night Football on Prime. Broncos at the Saints. Denver favored by 3. ALCS Game 3 in Cleveland. Yankees lead the series 2-1. And right now, Cleveland with a 2-1 lead in Game 3. Oregon Ducks will take on Purdue tomorrow night on the road. Ducks are favored by 27.5. We got more of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now. And Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio in studio at 5. All right, Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, is coming back. He's going to be in studio coming up at 5. We love talking with Noe, and I got good news from Noe today when I was talking with him. He extended his stay here in Portland up until the first part of November, so we're going to get more B. Noe in studio.
Love it. Love it. We'll take all we can get.
Now, I know that the TV in the studio is suboptimal, Godfather.
Yeah, that's a good way of putting it.
But I turned off some of the lights, and frankly, it's better on my eyes, and it looks like we created a better view on the screen of the baseball game between the Yanks and Guardians.
Well, it's a contrast problem, and if we could actually get to the whatever contrast button it has somewhere, we might be able to fix it.
I'm afraid to touch it because the last time I went fishing around on a TV on the contrast, Joseph, the engineer, had to come in and remove the TV and put the next one up.
Really?
But the problem is the one he gave us is kind of a lemon, too.
It is.
Yeah, it's a bad TV.
It's very dark.
And that's not Joe's fault. It's just, well, it's an iHeart thing. Again, I'll say it. We work for one of the largest companies in the world that's into communications, right? You would think that we might have a better TV. And by the way, speaking of TVs, you told me that you put your new digital antenna on a different television in your crib. What'd you do?
No, I had one original that didn't work at all for me on the one TV I tried it on.
Except for the Blazer station.
No. I went and got another one, put that on, and got the Blazer station.
Okay,
I
good.
paid more money because it has longer range.
Okay.
So then I took the old one, put it on another TV, and I stretched it out where the actual antenna was on a windowsill. And I was able to get earthquake or something. I was able to get everything but 2.2 and 2.3 and all those that I got on the other station, on the other
That is
antenna.
so bizarre.
It's craziness.
So you're getting all these stations, but now you can't get the Blazer stuff.
All the way up to 49. I'm getting all of those stations, most of which I probably won't watch. But
you know what? I'm proud of you because
thank you.
I've been on you the last couple of days about.
That's why I did it. I was
know.
getting tired of it.
Well, you've got access to a lot of good stuff right now, which is good. Now you just got to figure out to solve that problem. It could be that out where you're at, based on the positioning, can be that one side of your house is only going to get you K2, and the other side of the house will get you everything else but not K2.
Right.
That sucks.
Well, it has something to do, I'm sure, with where their towers are located, probably. And there's also, we have a bunch of trees out there. I know it's ironic, trees on a golf course, but we do have trees out there.
They're big, too.
Yes, they're very big. And they might be blocking some signals, too. I don't know.
They might be blocking your approach to the green sometimes, too, I've noticed.
Well, not only mine, but others. They block the sun at times, too. They're big trees.
There are a couple of tee boxes where it's like, I wish that tree wasn't there because it would make me feel a lot more comfortable with this drive I'm about to hit right here.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad that you're making progress with that. I do have my digital antenna that I use in my room. I have it sitting in the windowsill.
That helps, doesn't it?
It does. Yeah, there's no question about it. And I access basically everything you have access to in the digital world. Again, I'll say it. I'm just amazed at what you have access to for free channels. If young Chad would have had access to all those channels, I would have been a happy man or a happy boy.
Well, I would say this, having worked for a kind of like a cable company before, if people knew how many free channels there were out there right now, there might not be as many cable users.
It's quite possible.
Because there's a lot of
Oh,
channels
it's
there.
unbelievable. Every night.
Yeah, I had no idea.
I'm watching good shows every night. I fall asleep to the TV every night. Are you a TV guy? I can't lie in bed without the TV on. I don't understand that life.
I actually record certain things because I know they'll put me to sleep.
Yeah.
Really. And I put that on before I want to fall asleep.
I fall asleep to it's either Perry Mason or The Twilight Zone or Alfred Hitchcock every night.
Yeah?
Yeah. And it works because I set my sleep timer. I get in my position and I start to watch the program. The only thing I hate is that sometimes you get locked into a good program, but then you can't keep up. You're like, I'm out. I'm done. I close my eyes and give up.
Well, the good thing about all those channels, too, is they're all in all those stations or all those programs are in black and white, which I think helps fall asleep because the color kind of has an impact on your eyeballs and kind of keeps you awake more.
He can't speak, but I think Puppy Shots enjoys the black and white programs.
Yeah,
he does.
Yeah.
All right. Let's take a listen to Sean Payton. The Broncos, oh, my gosh. They're really bad on offense right now. They were getting shut out last week, 23-zip, before they started to crank up the offense with Bo Nix. I'm frustrated with Sean Payton because he's a genius, as I've been told. Well-respected offensive mind, but the offense hasn't quite clicked yet. And I think that's a combination of things. One, he's got a rookie quarterback in Bo Nix who's still learning how to play in the NFL.
Yeah.
I think he gets too creative by throwing too many personnel groupings out there on the field, and I think that kind of confuses Bo and some of the other guys because you can't really develop chemistry with certain players when the coach is always changing the personnel groupings.
Yeah.
And then I think Sean is having issues trying to find the right rhythm with Bo early in games, like between the run and the pass and what plays to call to get the offense going. And then I think Sean, by nature, is being protective of Bo because he doesn't want him to get damaged as a rookie quarterback. And so it's created this slowdown of the offense.
You said the other day you thought maybe it was time to take the training wheels off Bo.
Yes.
That makes sense. Just from watching him, I don't know all that much, but it does look like they're being so careful of him.
I do believe for a young player, when the coach is in your ear and you're being conservative by nature, I think what happens with the quarterback mindset sometimes is that Bo doesn't want to make mistakes either. So he starts to be too careful.
Yeah.
So instead of just throwing the football, you're trying to almost hand it to your receiver who's on an in cut. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well, I think it also almost impacts his confidence because he's like, they don't have any confidence in me to let me do what I see and what I want to do.
Yeah, and at some point, there's that fine line between being the quarterback and running the system, but at some point, you got to let her rip a bit. So it's a work in progress. Again, I'm not freaking out because I understand that rookie quarterbacks require time to develop. And Bo Nix has played 6 games, so I'm not expecting perfection. I just want to see Sean Payton come up with a little bit more to get things going early. The problem with the game tonight, they're on the road, and the Saints are beat up with injuries. The Broncos are beat up. It's a short rest game. I don't expect great offense tonight. It could be kind of one of those, well, similar to what we saw on Monday night, penalties and poor offense with the short, work week. We talked with Ryan Edwards a couple of days ago, and he made a good point, too, that, maybe the short week will help the Broncos because the game plan will be a little more simplified. Less details to cloud your brain with. You know what I'm saying? So maybe that will help Denver out tonight. We'll see how it works. But the reality is for the Broncos, with all the issues they've got on offense and they're trying to teach a young rookie how to play quarterback, they win tonight. They move to 4-3, and they come back home for a game against Carolina, one of the crappiest teams in the NFL, no disrespect. And they have a chance to be 5-3, 8 games in. That's not bad for having a rookie QB at the helm.
Yeah.
I can live with that because that means you're playing meaningful football games in the second half of the season.
They've played okay on the road, too, which has kind of been surprising. I would have thought that would be tough.
Yeah, I would agree. The win against the New York Jets was a pleasant, unexpected surprise. The domination of Tampa Bay, who's a good football team, was not expected, but quite pleasurable. And then they finally got up to Schneid against the Raiders and beat them up at home. So I've been very pleased with the performance overall. But, in in the NFL, just like Mike Tomlin knows, you got to have offense to be able to win games. And the problem is, and you know this, everyone's like, well, why can't you just go hurry up all the time? Like we saw at the end of the game last week against the Chargers when Bo was making it happen. The problem is that when you run out of shotgun all the time, you don't have any motion. Your quarterback's in shotgun. You don't have the threat of the run the way you would if he was under center. You can't manipulate a defense. You're basically slowing down his learning process of how to manipulate a defense at the line of scrimmage. It works in spots, but you can't do that for an entire game.
Yeah, and I think it's only fair to point out that the Chargers in that game were playing against the clock. They weren't necessarily playing against the Broncos.
That's right.
They were sitting back a little bit.
Yeah, it wasn't a true prevent, but they were playing a zone, and they were just trying to keep everything in front of them to make Denver use up time. If they're going to get points, make them use up time because we've got this game in hand. And that makes perfect sense. But here's Sean. The big story tonight, aside from the game, is the fact that Sean Payton is making a return to New Orleans, where he coached for many years and won a Super Bowl, and he loves it there. And there's a special connection between him and the town because of what he and Breeze did to lift them through that rough period of time with Hurricane Katrina.
Yes.
Special. Let's take a listen to Sean.
Look, I'm sure there'll be some emotions at some point, but more importantly, it's about our team. We go to stadiums with players that, man, this means something to me. I used to be a Chief or Charger, Raider or Eagle, you know, and to that individual, having spent time there, that matters. And so I haven't really had a chance to, I get it, but what's most important is finding a way to win.
All right, what that means is it really matters to him, and he's going to want to win the game tonight.
Yeah, he just likes to downplay that kind of stuff.
They all do it. Oh, it's just another game. This is not another game to Sean Payton.
Yeah.
He used to coach there. He's got a lot of friends there. He does not want to lose this game. So what I'm wondering is, being the fact that it's on the road in New Orleans, his return home, maybe a trick play, maybe something with a little more spice to it, maybe a couple of wrinkles to kind of put his offense in a better position early. I think the Broncos are going to lose tonight, so that's how I feel about the game. But maybe something special from Sean to get things going, right? I just don't know how they're going to do it in the Dome when you can't score. Everyone thinks Denver's going to win tonight, but the Saints are beat up too, and they're going to have a young quarterback in there as well, and Spencer Rattler. But the Broncos can't move the football. And if you can't move the football, I don't care who's playing quarterback for the other team, you're going to have issues. So the Broncos better hope for great special teams and their defense continuing to dominate, or they're going to have some issues tonight. So hopefully, Sean, maybe this is what he needs. Going home, a little home cooking for Sean. Maybe it'll inspire him to drop some better plays. Maybe. What do you think? What would you do? Just take the training wheels off and encourage him to attack a little bit more downfield?
Well, you have to at some point. At some point, you guys just let him play and open up the playbook and say, yeah, let's look down the field a little bit more. They need explosive plays, and they never get any, it seems, other than late in the game when teams are playing prevent against them. Open it up.
All right, what do we got here? 3-1 Indians.
It's 3-1 now.
Indians.
Yeah, and 2 outs,
Guardians.
2 on, and Stephen Kwan stepping to the plate.
I pulled a Romo. He referenced the Redskins in the broadcast with Nance last week. I just said Indians.
Yeah. Happens to everybody.
I hate that. They changed the team name. It's been one name my whole life, and then they change things up on me like that.
And it has to be the worst nickname in sports right now.
The Guardians.
Yeah, it's a brutal nickname.
It's a brutal nickname.
They must have been able to come up with something better than that.
All right, when we come back, we want to talk about that Sabrina shot. The Godfather's got some thoughts, and then we're going to hear from a really smart head coach. The question with the change by Mike Tomlin and the Steelers quarterback situation, is it the right timing? And that's what we're going to try and figure out. You got the Rip City Drive. Just let me know when you got it. All right, Godfather. That shot by Sabrina last night was pretty awesome. And New York now with a 2-1 lead in the WNBA Finals. You and I are big fans of Sabrina Ionescu, not only because she's a great basketball player, but she's a terrific person and means so much to the University of Oregon for everything that she's been able to do. So it was pretty cool to see her in that moment. The shot, to me, felt a lot like Dame in terms of the dribble out and the setup and the step back and fire away from the shot with pure confidence from like 30 feet away. It takes a lot of guts to be able to put up that shot, and she did it without even hesitating.
Yeah, she did. And I don't know what to say, except I've believed all along she was better than Caitlin Clark. She was deprived of her trip to the Final Four by COVID, and had she made that trip and had the Ducks won, as most people expected them to do, she would have been much more well-known now. And it's unfortunate, and I think she does things the right way. I had the pleasure of interviewing her when I was at NBC Sports. She was great, a lot of fun to interview, and I was really impressed. I thought it was ironic last night. In her pregame interview, it was fairly well known. She was wearing a necklace given to her by Kobe Bryant that said Geppetto on it. And if you're a fan, what is it? It was Pinocchio, where we're talking about a puppet master. And he called her the puppet master, the way she controlled her game and the game itself. And I thought that was ironic. It's also, I wanted to talk about this, Chad, because it's so different in basketball now. The game was tied. They didn't need a 3. They didn't even need a 2. All they needed was 1 point to win a game. In the old days, you would never think about shooting an outside shot. You would take the ball to the basket and try to get fouled and go to the line, make one free throw. You win the game. So it's different now. And they, for her, that shot is money because she knows it. She shoots it all the time. She practices it. It's her shot. And, of course, she stepped up and made it, which was great.
I love that Kobe story with the necklace. He meant so much to a lot of different women in the game.
Yeah.
Because of his daughter and the way he worked with the girls and he encouraged them. I think that's pretty cool.
And he worked with her a lot.
Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
He liked her. Yeah.
Yeah, it was big time. That'd be pretty cool to see New York finish it off and they're able to win the championship.
She's never going to have to buy dinner in New York again. That's huge. They're so hungry for a winner there in anything. That was big.
She's a good shooter.
Yeah.
We saw that last year in the three-point competition when she challenged and went up against Steph.
Yeah, she pushed Steph to the limit pretty much.
She's fearless.
Yeah.
Her mentality and the way she approaches the game. I just respect her a great deal. She was great in college. She's been great in the WNBA, and now she's got a chance to win a championship, which is pretty cool. And the game has changed. But I wonder sometimes, too, in the WNBA with the way that it can get clogged up in the paint and everything.
Yeah.
Get those arms, turn it over, make a mistake. Maybe the coach thought that was a good shot in that situation.
I think the coach thought, we're going to just put it in her hands and she'll do what's right.
It's not a bad idea.
Yeah, I think it's just like, just give her the ball and get out of the way.
That's pretty awesome.
It's a Damian Lillard kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
I think she's the closest thing they have in that league to Dame.
Well, the greatest thing is when you make the shot, regardless of whether it was a good shot, a bad shot, or whatever, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's a good shot if you make it. I don't care if it's from half court.
Yeah. That's why Paul George's reaction to the Dame shot in the moment was so poor. It's like, it doesn't matter whether it's a good shot or not. Just say, hey, man, hit a tough shot. Props to him.
Yeah.
That's why you handle that. And, Sabrina last night, like you said, she didn't do any type of pirouette. There was no shimmying up and down the floor, no nonsense.
No, it's like I've made this shot 100 times. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I like the reaction by her.
Yeah, I did too. That's the best. That's old school stuff.
Yeah, I don't remember.
Cold-blooded. I think it was KD that said something about on Twitter. That's a cold-blooded shot.
Yeah, scores recognize game. They like that. Yeah. It's big time.
She got a lot of tweets from NBA players on that shot.
All right. Steelers head coach Mike Tomlin has made a decision with his quarterback. The Steelers right now playing decent football, 4-2, and it's going to be a delicious Sunday night football game, but the Steelers will host the Jets. So you've got the Steelers who are now going to start Russ, so that's its own story unto itself. And then you've got the good old New York Jets coming to town, coming off a brutal home loss to the Bills, underachieving on the year. They just fired their head coach. They promoted another guy to take over as head coach. They got rid of Nathaniel Hackett as the play caller, and they got another dude calling plays. So they're just a giant mess, and they're being penalized, and they can't make field goals, and there's a lot of pressure on them to win. And now you've got the Steelers who are going to go with Russ. So the storylines are going to be fabulous for Sunday Night Football. But here is Coach Tomlin discussing his decision at quarterback.
Justin has been really good, and we've been really good at times, but not to be confused with great. Man, this is a competitive league, man. We're trying to position ourselves to be that team. And we got a player with talent who hadn't had an opportunity to play, so we're going to potentially explore those things. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what Justin has done or has not done. Justin has been an asset to us, man. Last week, for example, man, his ability to utilize his legs by design and by ad-lib was a significant component of that game. He rushed for 50-plus yards and 2 touchdowns in game. And so we're appreciative of that. We're appreciative of how he's taking care of the ball. But we're just looking at all the people at our disposal the same way that we do at any position. We acquire.
There you go. That is Mike Tomlin. I agree with his philosophy on why he's doing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
It makes sense to me. He knows that what they have right now with Fields at quarterback, they need more production from that position in the passing game if they're going to be a factor come playoff time. So we have another guy in Russ who's been hurt, hasn't had a chance to play. We think he's getting more effective and give us more balance on offense, so we're going to go with the move. So I agree with his philosophy and his mindset, and I appreciate the honesty in the way he answered that. Here's what I was thinking about today. Could it be that the timing of the decision may be a little bit off, meaning they're 4-2, they're playing good football. Now you're going to put in a guy who hasn't played football all year, so there could be a bit of a hiccup there in terms of Russ getting back into the mix. You've got the Jets coming to town who have a good defense. It would feel to me like no matter what Russ does, he will take the blame for the loss if it happens.
Yeah.
And if Russ goes out and doesn't play well and they lose, then do you create a controversy from the standpoint that, hey, we were 4-2 with Fields and you went to Russ and he was terrible. What are we doing here? So I'm wondering if maybe they should have waited until after this game to make a decision on the quarterback, because if Fields goes out on Sunday night and they lose the game and he doesn't play well, no one's going to question the move to Russ. But doing it when you're 4-2 and in a position where Fields hasn't been bad, he hasn't been great, but he hasn't been bad, I just don't know if you're putting Russ in the perfect position to have success here.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said for what you're saying, Chad. I think it is tough on Russ because this is going to be a very difficult game for Pittsburgh to win, I think. And the one thing I thought about was I think Tomlin is an old school guy who believes if you're a starter and you get hurt, when you get healthy, that job's still yours. And a lot of old school coaches believe that way. You don't lose a starting job due to an injury.
Yeah.
Now, the second part about that is to get Russ to come there, I believe there was probably a promise made that he was going to be the starter.
Yeah, I do believe that there were assurances that were given.
Yeah.
I had heard reports about that. It also could be very simple that, and Justin Fields' response today was incredible when he was very honest in his assessment of how he's played. And you're not going to hear too many athletes do that. Russ would even admit to what Fields did today. Justin Fields, that's part of the reason why he's beloved, is because he's so real. But it could be that, and again, we're not a part of the meetings, but it could be that what the Steelers staff, their offensive coaching staff, along with Tomlin, are seeing, maybe he's missing much more than what we see in the game.
Yes, very possible.
Meaning the way the plays are being called, the way he's supposed to read each play, and where they want the football delivered, maybe he's missing on even more than what we see, which would lead them to make the change now.
Yeah, I think that's entirely possible. You know, there were reasons he didn't work out in Chicago, and they weren't all because of the coaching or whatever. I think it's possible he's not seeing the field well. He's not making the right reads. He's not seeing open receivers, or he's not getting the ball to open receivers. And so you try a guy who's noted to be a better passer. Maybe that was several years ago. But I think you owe it to yourself to change, because I think Mike Tomlin believes Fields can't get them where they want to go.
Yeah.
So we got to see if Russ can.
Yeah, and the truth is, Tomlin has not won a playoff game in 7 years.
Mm-hmm.
So there's pressure on him to have some postseason success.
Wow, 7 years it's been?
Yeah.
Whew.
Now, he's never had a losing record, which is pretty amazing, but no postseason success. Now, here is Justin Fields today. Now, when you hear Fields talk and give his assessment on why he thinks the change is being made, imagine LeBron or Russ or any other high-level athlete being this open and honest. It's pretty amazing, and props to him. Take a listen.
I mean, I don't think I played, good enough. If I'm being real with you. If I'm being real with myself, I think if I did play well enough, I don't think there would be any sort of we got a few wins. Of course, I'm glad about that, but there's areas that I can be better at, and I'm just gonna continue to work on those and continue to get better.
All right, there's Justin Fields. It's pretty amazing where he's like, hey, if I were playing better, there would be no question that I should be starting. But even he acknowledges that he's not getting the job done to the level that the coaching staff requires for him to be able to keep that job.
Hey, sounds like a guy who's been in a meeting with the coaches, going over video and saying, see that right there? You should have hit that, or you should have hit this, or whatever. He knows. He knows better than anybody how he's playing.
Gosh. I mean, if you're a teammate of his, how can you not respect the way he handled that?
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome. That's good culture, too, for your players to be able to embrace difficult decisions that are made by the coaching staff.
Yeah, accountability.
Yeah, so I hope Russ plays well. I really do. That's going to be a fascinating game to watch. So this is what we got going on Sunday. And the game's set up perfectly so that you can spend all day watching ball and not worrying about any of the honey-do lists that your wife has dropped in front of you.
He might be worried about not completing the honey-do list.
In the morning, we've got Detroit playing at Minnesota. Massive matchup between two of the best teams in the NFC. And Minnesota playing flawless football right now. And Detroit's coming off the beatdown of the Dallas Cowboys. Then in the afternoon, you have a Super Bowl rematch with the Kansas City Chiefs traveling to Santa Clara to take on the 49ers at Levi's Field.
Great game.
That's a must-see football game. And then to cap off the evening, we get a wonderful Sunday night football game with juicy storylines. Russ returning for the Steelers. First game of the year, first action as a Steeler against Aaron Rodgers. And now Devontae Adams, who's a part of the Jets, will be there as well.
Nice.
And the Jets offense, which has had their issues going up against one of the best defenses in football. And I'll tell you what, Aaron Rodgers better be ready because the Steelers are going to come after him.
Ooh,
and
boy.
And they're tough, man. They hit hard and they bring pressure, and it's going to test Rodgers. They're going to come after him, and he has not handled that particularly well so far this year.
Yeah. There's blood in the water in a sense that they've seen him limping around. They know he's vulnerable. This is sharks going after a wounded fish of some sort.
For all of you who do not like Aaron Rodgers, and I know there are many of you, give credit to my Denver Broncos for what they did. They put some stuff on tape that gave him fits in that loss at home to Denver when they started blitzing safeties and pounding him. And now we're seeing everyone else fall in line and do the same thing. So I think that's going to be a defensive-type football game, and it'll be one of those games where whoever makes the fewest mistakes, mainly turnovers, will be the team that wins the game. That's how that's going to shake out.
Those kind of games are usually Steelers-type games, but with Russ at quarterback and his penchant for turning the ball over once in a while, it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how Russ plays. Last year, numbers-wise, it was really good. One of the top quarterbacks in terms of rating. I think he had a 23 touchdown, 8 interception year, which is very good. So we'll see how it shakes out. But fascinating. And Russ knows he's not dumb. If he doesn't play well, the Steeler fans will start booing instantly.
Yeah.
They're going to want change. They're going to be frustrated with Tomlin for making the switch when they were 4-2 with Justin Fields. Like, Russ is in a tough spot. He's got to play well, and they've got to win. Even if he played well and threw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns and they lose a game, he'll still get blamed for the loss. And Tomlin will, too, for making the change. Everything was good, and then he had to change what we had going on. What's up with that?
Yeah.
You know how that plays out.
Yeah, Tomlin is the one guy. He's not afraid of that at all. Bring it on.
Tomlin's one of the toughest dudes I've ever seen. Like, that's not a guy I'd want to upset because he's intense. And I just think he's a guy that, you can tell, like, he demands respect.
Yeah, he's impervious to the criticism, too. He's going to do what he wants to do. And he really, frankly, he doesn't care what you think about it.
He was so irritated when they were asking him about the USC job.
Oh, yeah.
Like, why would I want that? I've got one of the greatest jobs in the world for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And he just shut down that conversation right away.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's good. I'm a big fan of Tomlin. I still can't believe that I've been alive for a long time, The Steelers in my lifetime have only had 3 head coaches. So when every other franchise like the Jets and these other crappy teams like the Browns have had coach after coach after coach, it was Chuck Noll, then it was Bill Cowher, and now it's Mike Tomlin.
Yeah.
That's it. In all that time span.
And they've all been pretty good.
That's pretty wild.
Yeah.
They've all won championships. That's a very well-run franchise, and they always have been. Family run.
Mm-hmm.
They draft well. They develop well. They don't have a lot of turnover, and they're one of the few franchises that will not, when it comes time to get rid of a guy, they don't hold on to anyone for too long. They probably did for Big Ben to a degree, but it's different with quarterback. But anyone else, they're willing to let guys go and not overpay for someone who's on the downside of their career.
Mm-hmm.
It's impressive. I mean, you can count on one hand how many great franchises there have been in your lifetime covering sports, Godfather.
Oh, no question. And you always have to respect the way they play and how hard they play on defense and how smart they are on defense.
Yeah.
They stay in every game because they can keep you from scoring.
Yeah. The NFL, the formula is simple. If you can stop the run and play good defense and not turn it over, you'll be in basically every football game you play.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the key elements. You got to be able to stop the run and then don't turn it over. And if you do those things, the NFL set it up to where you're going to be in a close football game. Most of these games come down to what? Final possession, field goal?
Yeah,
somewhere between 3 and 7 points?
Yep.
All right, we'll keep things rolling. Brian Noe. He didn't tell me if he was going to be coming in hot today or not, but Noe is going to be in studio with us at 5 o'clock. We always look forward to that conversation. When we come back, we got to talk about Ohtani. He's got some wild splits, Godfather.
Crazy stuff. I don't understand it.
Yeah. And based on the splits, why do they have him at leadoff? That's really the question, right?
Makes no sense whatsoever.
Okay, we'll get to that next. All right, apparently Shacker's only going to play music by artists who support Kamala Harris now. Or is it Kamala? Which one is it, Shacker?
Comma, like a comma in a sentence, then law, comma law.
All right, and you just saw this at Bon Jovi's a supporter of Kamala?
Well, yes, we have to play more Bon Jovi to get people to vote Kamala. Every vote counts, even out here.
All right, Shacker.
Yeah, this isn't exactly a battleground state, Mike. I hate to
I
tell you
know,
that.
but let's just go
Let's
for the popular
pretend.
vote. It'll just be awesome to see the Republicans claim there's cheating when they lose by 10 million votes.
Well, you don't think Oregon's going red this year, Godfather?
No, I don't look for that. I'm against the electoral college too. I'm big against that. I think
You
popular
are?
vote. Yeah, I am.
You crazy?
No, I'm not crazy. It's stupid.
Yeah, they'd be campaigning in different states. They've been campaigning in just a handful of states. They don't
Yeah,
come out
that's
here.
crazy.
The
talk right
votes
there.
would actually count if you actually did the popular vote.
Yeah, then you would have basically 3 cities that would control the election every year: L.A., New York, and Chicago.
Yeah, and that's where they should be campaigning, where the people are. Why does Iowa get to vote first in the primary? Who cares about Iowa? Why do they get to determine who's in charge of the country?
See, that's the type of elitist attitude that is really poor.
No, it's the correct opinion. It's lame to put all the power to one small state with the primaries, and it's lame to give 2 senators per state when they have smaller populations than other states.
All right, if you'd like to discuss the state of Iowa with Shacker, 503-248-0620.
Call him directly.
All right, these splits here for Shohei Ohtani are amazing. Through his first 8 playoff games, and again, he was never in the postseason with the Angels because they stink to high heaven.
Yeah.
Explain that to me. We got Trout and Ohtani. We can't make the postseason. Good work, Knobs. Unbelievable to me.
Yeah, I know. They had some pitching problems in those days.
But still,
I know.
you can't sniff the playoffs once with those 2 studs.
It makes no sense. Of course, Trout's had a little trouble staying healthy. We have to.
I know. All right. With runners on in the playoffs, Ohtani is 7 of 9 with 2 homers and 8 RBIs.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty good. When the bases are empty, Shohei Ohtani, one of the greatest players of all time, 0 for 22.
Yeah.
And the best part is he bats leadoff.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Chad. If he's hitting better with guys on base, let's make sure that he gets at least one at bat with the bases empty every game, because he's the leadoff hitter. So you know at least once he's going to do that, and probably more than that, because the bottom of the order is hitting ahead of him once the game starts. Those guys aren't going to get on base as much as the meat of the order would. So, and I realize analytics are playing some part in this, and I don't understand the analytics. I would be hitting him 4th to give 3 guys a chance to get on base before he comes up, because he's hitting, 900 with guys on base. I don't think that's a difficult concept, but what did you say? 6 for 8 or 7 for 9?
7 of 9.
Okay, so 9 times he's come up with guys on base.
Yeah.
22 times he's come up with nobody on base. All right, let's solve that problem, because we're not going to be able to figure out why he's hitting with guys on and why he's not. That's as much happenstance as anything else.
Well, why not bat him 3rd behind Betts and Freeman?
That's a decent idea. I could go for that. Yeah, I could do that.
Chances are those 2 dudes are going to be on base on a regular basis.
And Betts can hit leadoff. It's not a problem.
Of course.
He walks a lot. He gets on base. He's having a little trouble in the postseason, which he has had before. But let's just go with it. See what happens.
I guess they put him at leadoff because they know he's a threat to get to second when he gets on, right, Ohtani?
Well, yeah, Betts is too to a degree. But I would also say his on-base percentage is really high because he walks a lot. But he's not going to walk as much when he comes up. See, the reason he's hitting so well with guys on is they have to pitch to him with guys on. And when he's hitting with the bases empty, they can go for the corners. They can pitch him tougher because there's nobody on base, and they don't have to worry so much.
Oh, by the way, Shacker, Sean and Sandy has chimed in. The greatest pitcher ever is from Iowa, the heater from Van Meter, Fireball Bob Feller.
Bob Feller.
Is he Republican or Democrat?
He was a Republican, very conservative Republican.
Have you ever voted for a Republican candidate for president?
No.
Okay. I'm just curious. I just love tapping into your mind sometimes, Shacker.
think about I've been voting age since the mid-'90s. There's only been douchebags running as Republicans. They
got a home run.
Offered anything.
Who hit the homer? Yanks got it.
Judge.
Is that Judge?
Yeah, it's 3-3.
All right, Aaron Judge. He got off the schneid, right? People were criticizing him for his lack of production in the postseason.
He hit it off Class A, too, the best reliever in baseball.
All right, who are the Republicans that have run since you've been voting? So that would be
Bob Dole. He fell off the stage.
George Bush.
Yeah, got us in a forever war. 9/11 happened because of him.
So John McCain.
Yeah, horrible running mate. He was deteriorating. He was pretty elderly by the time he ran.
Who's the other dude?
Mitt Romney.
Yeah, Mitt. And then Trump, right?
Yes.
There you go. 5 guys. So your first election you voted in was 96?
Yeah.
Mine too. 96. How many elections have you voted in, Godfather?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Who was the first? What was the first presidential election that you can remember voting in?
George Washington. I knew you'd like that. Actually, it was Abraham Lincoln.
Oh, good.
Yeah. He was a Republican.
Honest Abe.
Yeah.
Do you remember the first, who the candidates were the first time you could vote?
Did you vote FDR the second or third time?
Let's see. It would have been probably... I don't even remember.
He doesn't even remember.
I don't remember.
My son Isaac's excited because this will be the first year where he can vote in a presidential election.
Oh, I know who he's voting for.
Yeah, he loves Trump. Yeah, he does. He does. He loves Trump. But, yeah, this is the first time my son will be able to take part in that. He's been telling me all about it.
Is he trying to influence your vote?
No, he just, the great thing about my son is that he's developed his own ideology on his own. I don't put that I don't discuss too much with my kids unless they ask me questions on certain things. But Isaac, he's his own guy, man. Yeah. Isaac is his own guy. And the great thing about him is that he's not afraid to discuss his thoughts on everything with anyone. So I try to tell him, like, son, you got to remember that, sometimes politics, some people don't want to talk politics. He said, well, why not? We're just having a conversation. Yeah, Isaac doesn't know.
If you're watching TV right now, you're watching Giancarlo Stanton hit a home run to put the Yankees ahead 4-3.
So he just hit one out?
Yeah.
Back-to-backers?
Yeah.
Nice work. Giancarlo's usually good for a strikeout, too. He got over there.
No kidding. Yeah.
Wow. This is really bad for the Indians. What is it, the 8th inning?
It's the 8th inning. The Guardians, yes.
Did I just say Indians again?
Yeah, you did. It's cutting the heart out of them, too. Class A is their best reliever, the best in baseball, really. But no luck tonight.
Who's your favorite president in your lifetime?
That's a great question. Gosh.
Like JFK?
Yeah, Jack Kennedy would be my favorite president. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad liked him.
Well, he was a young person's president, too. He was very... he was very vitalic. And, he was action man. He played touch football on the beach. He was...
Good-looking dude.
Yeah. Marilyn Monroe liked him, that's for sure.
I like Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
Let's just put it this way. If she came calling, it would be hard for me to turn down that phone call. Mr.
Really?
President, it's Marilyn Monroe. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I do like that. I think I've told you 13 Days, the movie on the Cuban Missile Crisis. That's one of my favorite movies of all time.
Great movie.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
Really good. Bruce Greenwood played Kennedy in that movie. He was awesome. And then, what's his name? Who's the famous actor? He played the special assistant to the president. He was in the star of Yellowstone. What's his name?
No,
he was in Waterworld. He's been in a
Costner.
Yeah, Kevin Costner.
Yeah, Costner.
Costner was great in that movie too.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, 13 Days is awesome.
Got a call saying don't talk politics ever again.
You did?
Yeah.
Well, I just like to bring you into the mix to just check Shacker's temperature for the day. All right, when we come back, Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio. We'll talk NFL. We'll get his take on Tomlin's decision. We'll talk about the Saints and Broncos. We've got to get his take on the Vikes And Lions, also the 49ers and Chiefs. He's up next on the Rip City Drive. All right, Noe, Fox Sports Radio is in studio. He's going to join us coming up next. The Yankees got back-to-back homers from Judge and Stanton, and they now have a 4-3 lead in the eighth in Cleveland as they look to take a 3-0 lead in the ALCS. Trailblazers back in action tomorrow, hosting the Utah Jazz. Chris Burkhardt will have game day at 5, tip-off at 7. It will be the preseason finale. The season opener is going to be Wednesday night with Steph Curry and the Warriors in town. You can grab tickets. They're still available at trailblazers.com. It'll be a fan-inspired T-shirt giveaway night for all. We got Thursday Night Football on Prime coming up in a couple of minutes. Broncos at the Saints. Sean Payton's return to New Orleans. Denver right now is favored by 3. The Ducks will be in Purdue to meet the Boilermakers tomorrow. They're favored by 27.5 coming off the win over Ohio State. More of the Rip City Drive with Dwight and Chad coming at you right now. All right, Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio, is back in studio, and he gave us great news today that he's going to extend his stay in Portland up until November 3rd, so he's going to continue to be with us for the next couple of weeks. You're a smart guy, Brian. Dwight and I were just talking about this, so I want to lay this on you.
Okay.
Shohei Ohtani, in his 8 career playoff games, so this is his first postseason experience being with the Dodgers, with runners on, 7 of 9, 2 homers, and 8 RBIs, when the bases are empty, 0 for 22. Does that make any sense at all?
It's so crazy. They showed that last night after the game.
Yeah.
And like the post-game show and all that. And I saw that stat, and I'm like, how do you explain that?
Well, Brian, did anybody mention the possibility of having him not hit leadoff, where he's guaranteed to come up with nobody on at least once every game, and probably a lot more than that?
That's true, yeah. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with the pitches that he sees when guys are on base and all that. But still, that's such a drastic contrast. How do you explain arguably the best hitter right now being, did you say hitless in 22 ABs?
0 for 22.
That's insane, man.
I think that's an anomaly.
I can't explain that.
It's so strange. And now the Yankees get back-to-back homers from Judge and Stanton, and now they got the Indians on the ropes.
Wait a minute. The Guardians on the ropes.
I keep saying the Indians. I'm stuck on Indians now, so I'm basically done for the rest of the day.
I have to pause. I'm like the Guardians.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear that over the weekend? The Ravens Commanders game. Romo referenced the Redskins, and Nance just let the silence continue on. Didn't even address it. And then someone was in his ear because he goes, but the Commanders are good, Jim.
It might have been Jim Nance years ago. Instead of the steel curtain, he said the iron curtain, which was good. I love that one. That one's really good. But if you're at Cleveland, man, like this is your life. If you follow Guardians baseball, it's just like this would make sense. Where Clase, who's unbelievable, great closer, would give up back-to-back jacks. And it's like, oh, we thought we were getting in this series, and it looks like we're probably going to lose and be down 3-0. That's rough right there, man.
All right, let's start with this since it's already happened. What was your reaction to the Oregon-Ohio State game? Just the way it played out, 32-31, the big plays, and really on that stage, probably the greatest game ever played at Autzen.
Yeah, it was a great game, and the focal point is the end of the game, right? Where 12 men on the field, the loophole has been closed. But it was a great move by Dan Lanning.
Did you ever think you'd see the NCAA act so quickly on anything? You punk Ohio State, and we're going to stand up and get something done.
I swear, the NCAA must feel like parents that just have no, sway with their kids.
No power.
You guys are grounded for a week, and they're hoping, I hope they say okay. You know what I mean? All right, the loophole has been closed, and everybody just says, okay, fine. Otherwise, we just push back. But yeah, it had to be closed. It made all the sense in the world for Lanning to take advantage of the rules. He did. They benefited. How crazy was that? How close it was between a win and a loss for both teams.
That close. What did you think about Will Howard taking the slide at the end in that moment?
You just got to be more aware. You just got to be more aware in that situation. You can't run the time off the clock. It reminded me of what was it, Iamaleava, the Tennessee quarterback at Arkansas.
Yeah.
You just got to heave it, do a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar sky hook into the ends. Don't just go down. What are you doing? You run out of bounds with no time?
Give
what
yourself
are we
a
doing?
chance.
It's the same thing with Will Howard, man. You got to just give yourself a chance. Extended to 12 games. It might water down some of the matchups toward the end of the regular season. It hasn't watered down anything yet.
No.
That was a tremendous game.
Yeah, do you think that you've changed your opinion on either team after watching that game, Brian? Or is it just like you think you're going to see them play again or maybe even again?
Well, I slightly with both teams.
Really?
Dwight. Yeah, because we talked about it with Oregon where you just leave each game wanting more from their offense.
Yeah.
And when you score over 30 points against Ohio State, it's like, okay, maybe they just were not getting up for the lesser teams, you know, because they've got the talent to put it together. And with Ohio State, like their secondary looks lost at times. They got away from running the football. Like, some of those little things, we know they have the talent, but it's like, do you trust Ryan Day? You know, do you trust the secondary? You could have a star-studded roster and just be a little bit off or a little bit weak at a spot or two, and that could make the difference even in college football.
You said something there. They got away from running the ball. Doesn't everybody? I mean, how many times a week do we say, well, they should, why didn't they just keep running the football?
I know. Boise State's the only team that has it figured out. You know what I mean? Just give it to Genty and call it a day.
You had that guy on your team.
Dude, he's putting up Barry numbers, man.
It's crazy what he's doing, man. He's so good.
I never thought I would see a season like Barry's, and yet I'm watching a season like Barry's. I mean, he's putting up big numbers. Like I was telling Dwight, a lot of these games, he's not playing in the second half or late into the fourth quarter.
For 2 games, he sat the entire second half. Against the Ducks, he almost rushed for 200 yards.
Mm-hmm.
That's like arguably the number 1 team in the nation, you know?
Harder for a player from Boise to get the Heisman Trophy, but don't you think his numbers are so ridiculous? If it continues, it will be easy for voters to just give him the nod?
Maybe, right? A lot of it depends on, like, does Dylan Gabriel step it up even more? Are the Ducks undefeated, right? Like that sort of thing. Travis Hunter, if Colorado wins a few more games, playing both ways is really impressive, but I mean, we don't see too many group of 5 guys get love, but he's that special where, it could break his way.
Another weekend where this is going to be great because Georgia's at Texas, and Georgia's in that weird spot where they've already got a loss. They probably cannot afford another loss and still make the postseason and be in that playoff. So I that's a big game, but also Alabama, Tennessee the same way. Both teams with the loss. And both teams have been trending in the wrong direction over the last couple of weeks. So there's going to be high stakes in both those football games.
Yeah, it's going to be high. I was sitting here wondering how many 2-loss teams will make it. Because I think we'll have a couple.
Yeah, for sure.
But, I mean, if you drop your second game and you lost one of them to Vandy, if you're Bama,
you're done.
That's really rough right there. I still think a couple of 2-loss teams sneak in. But you have 0 margin for error. You know, like there's a question that Bama still might have one more mulligan, but you don't want to go down with
You're right,
2
though.
losses.
Georgia, by losing that close game at Bama, if they were to lose a field goal game at Texas, even if they're not in the SEC title game, they could still make a strong case for getting in.
Right.
Say, we played 2 of the best teams in the country, and we just got edged in the end. What do you want us to do?
How crazy is that, too, where imagine if it's between Georgia and Bama, and they both have 2 losses. And Bama lost to Georgia head-to-head, but Bama lost to Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
So Georgia's like, but you lost to Vandy. We lost to you on the road. That'd be a good debate.
I think if you're a 2-loss team, you better be out of the SEC.
Yeah.
Or maybe the Big Ten.
Yeah.
But otherwise, no. Sorry, kid.
It's going to be tough. Yeah, I think you're probably right about that, Dwight.
What do you think about Cam Ward as a potential NFL quarterback?
Hey, man, he's been good at every stop.
True.
I bet the over in some random incarnate word game.
Sure.
I don't even know. I don't know who they were playing. No one could stop either team. And I'm like, am I betting over 95.5 in game? It's like, yeah, I am, because no one can play defense. And then he went to Washington State, now Miami. He's been good everywhere he's been.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I could see Cam Ward. It's a crapshoot, man. You know, like, I didn't know Jaden Daniels would be this good.
Oh, he looks unbelievable.
I didn't know C.J. Stroud would be this good. He had so much talent at Ohio State. I had my doubts. And he's been so special, man. So I wouldn't count Cam Ward out at all.
You and I were talking about this today on the phone. I was watching Daniels against Baltimore, and, obviously their defense has still got some issues. They gave up 30 points, but that was one of those games where even in a loss, I was like, man, the Commanders have got their guy. He was a stud. Once again, he's performing, and he's accurate with the football in big moments.
Yeah, he's just smooth. He's calm. He's just poised. He's not in a rush. He just knows that he can move around and buy time. He doesn't force throws. He's just really smart. And he looks way more seasoned than the amount of games he's played. If you didn't know any better and you just watched a game, you'd be like, man, he's in like year 3, year 5. It's like, no, man, this is like his 6th game in the NFL. It's crazy what he's been able to do so far.
He looks really good. You're right. He doesn't have the experience of a Bo Nix or a Dylan Gabriel, some of those guys that have played like 5 or 6 years in college. He just didn't have that.
Yeah. But, man, in the NFL, I would think he's like in his 5th NFL year. And he's a rookie, man. Caleb Williams is looking a lot better, too, the Bears quarterback.
Oh, he was much better this past weekend.
Yeah. We got to be a little bit slower. It's like game 1, game 2. Hey, what's going on with this guy? It's like, give it a little bit of time.
But where did that change? Because when you and I were younger as kids, I remember rookies coming in, and we expected them to suck in their first year, and we didn't freak out about it. In fact, we didn't really start to make judgments until year 2 or year 3. Even great quarterbacks like Elway got off to a bad start. When did it change to where we expect them to be great right away?
Yeah, it's a good question because Peyton Manning didn't have a great rookie season.
No, he was throwing interceptions right and left.
And some of these guys, like, there's a reason why Washington was picking number 2 overall, right? Like, they don't have a good roster.
Yeah.
They lost a ton of games. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it was before Herbert. I mean, like, Herbert hit the ground running. He had a great rookie season. I'm not sure exactly where it went. But, you think about Caleb Williams, how polarizing he was in college and how much talk there was before he even took a snap, where some people are like, I'm out on this guy, can't trust him. He paints his fingernails. He cried in his mother's arms. You know what I mean? Like, there was so much talk about him that it's almost like confirmation bias, where if you had your doubts and he struggled in week 1, you wanted to be like, see, like, maybe that's part of it, but I don't know if there's just like one quarterback that changed that thinking. But we're just totally impatient these days, man.
I mean, we went a long time. Dan Marino for years was the only guy that came in as a rookie and played well.
I know.
Yeah, but don't forget, a lot of them came in as rookies and didn't play at all.
Right.
That used to be the way you did it.
Yeah, that happened too.
They had to sit.
Sure. Yeah.
You got Elway out there lining up under his guard.
How great. I'd rather line up behind the guard than run out of the back of the end zone like Orlovsky.
Oh,
you know what I mean?
Bad.
The guard thing is bad too, though. That's very bad.
That shows you're a little bit nervous out there. All right, a lot to get to with Brian Noe. We'll talk about Davante Adams. We'll talk about some of these big matchups coming to this weekend. We'll get his take on Mike Tomlin's comments on the quarterback situation in Pittsburgh. Bino! Brian Noe, Fox Sports Radio in studio. Well, that's great. Bo Nix had 2 open guys on one play, and he missed them both. He threw right in between the shallow guy and the deep pattern.
What's the score?
There is no score.
Yeah,
No
he's
score.
like, my tight end is wide open. Let me just throw it in the open space where no one can get it.
That's nice. And Shacker's killing me right now because he chooses to not watch games until they're over, and he watches every game, which I respect a great deal of. So during the break, he's like, hey, can you angle your laptop so I don't see it through the reflection of the glass? He does that to me all the time.
It's bad for live betting, though, Shaq Diesel. You know, can't really live bet the games on replay.
Yeah, just so you know, the Yankees are still running the bases like they're drunk. Only they got away with it because the third baseman dropped it.
Oh,
He dropped an easy tag
Ramirez,
right
what are we doing? What a great line by John Sterling.
Wasn't that awesome?
Oh, it was so good.
Because how many home announcers are willing to be that critical in today's world?
Yeah, right. You know, the thing I thought about with Tom Brady being a minority owner and he's not allowed to criticize teams, I'm just so curious where the line is.
Well, that's what we were talking about. In fact, let's talk about those restrictions right now. They said that he's not allowed to criticize publicly the officials or other clubs. What does that mean for the broadcast in your mind?
I don't know. Because that's the thing is, where's the line? Can you say, hey, that was just a poor decision. I don't know why he threw it there or whatever, right? Like, is that acceptable? I don't know where the line is exactly.
Or Godfather, whether it be based on the interpretation of other owners in the NFL.
Hey, yeah. I would imagine there are several owners who are not happy he's with Vegas because he's going to make them better. I'm convinced of that. Davis is smart enough to listen to him. He's one of the smartest guys to ever play football. He's going to help them choose coaches, choose players, draft players, whatever. And I think they're going to be watching him like a hawk. And I think anything he says that could remotely be considered criticism of another team, he's going to get in trouble for it.
I wonder. You might be right, because I saw something today. This was from Troy Aikman, and it just made me think of Brady. Like, could Brady say what Aikman just said? He was talking about CeeDee Lamb, and he said, and the Cowboys receivers, he said, I think they run terrible routes. I think CeeDee has got to improve his route running. I see guys lazy coming off the line of scrimmage. It's got to be a lot better. Can Brady say the same thing? Like,
That's
I
what
really
we were
wonder
discussing.
that.
And if
I
he
don't
can't,
think so.
If he can't do that, then it prevents him from being able to be a good analyst.
Right. You got to be fair, man. To me, it's going to sound weird, but to me, it's a little bit like targeting in college football.
Yeah.
Right? Where I think it was Greg McElroy was on a game, and he's like, I can do a pretty good job of judging malice. You know? That wasn't a kill shot. He wasn't intending to use the crown of his helmet. The other guy dropped his helmet. It shouldn't be a penalty. I feel like the same sort of thing. Brady should be allowed to criticize certain things as long as it's not this personal cheap shot. It's like the laws of sports radio. That's what should apply to Brady.
Well, speaking of Aikman, like I brought up with Dwight, that game on Monday night with all the penalties, 22 accepted penalties, and Aikman was being openly critical of the officiating.
Right.
Which he should have been.
That was just ridiculous, man. It was so. But yeah, is Brady just going to be as like careful as possible? Like, the job calls for criticism at times. You have to be critical.
It's almost like, hey, Brady, you cannot have an opinion in the booth, and that makes for a bad broadcaster.
That would be bad.
But he's an owner now, and you wouldn't sit there and let an owner be critical of the officiating. I mean, those guys. Paul Allen, when he used to sit on the baseline there, he had to be careful of just his body language and all of that, or they would fine him.
Wow.
Let me give you an example of why it's important to be able to speak freely and have an opinion. On the Manning cast, they had Bill Belichick on.
Right.
And he was laughing about the Jets. He goes, well, as you guys know, I'm a huge fan of the Jets. And then he openly cracked Woody Johnson for being an idiot.
Right.
That was wildly fascinating.
It was great. It was great TV. Yes. And it's like, I don't think Salah should be out of a gig. It's like, I wonder what the conversations are going to be like where Kevin Burkhardt is like, hey, Tom, so, I mean, what do you think about Deshaun Watson's play this year? Is he supposed to be like, well, you know, the second quarter of the last game was a step in the right direction?
He's better off saying no comment.
Yeah, right. It's crazy.
I think what Burkhardt's going to have to do is get Brady coked out of his mind like Romo, and then he can just be crazy and start doing crazy stuff in the booth.
I know. He's going to have to find another niche because being critical, he might get popped for that. Who knows?
The other part, too, and John Madden was the genius that came up with the idea, but the fact that he's not going to be able to be a part of the production meetings.
Yeah.
I don't know how you can be at your best, even though Tom Brady knows everything about football. Some of the details you pick up on in those production meetings throughout the week leading up to the game are important to vital details that can help enhance the broadcast.
Yeah, no doubt about that. It's strange how they have it where I get it partially, where now that he's a partial owner, yeah, that could be valuable information that could be used in a way that the other team owners wouldn't like. I get that. But at the same time, yeah, you're right. He's going to miss out on a lot of stuff that would enhance the broadcast. He's not going to be there for that.
And, of course, the owners could be looking at it very simply saying he was a Patriot, he's a cheater, and he'll use any information he can to help the Raiders get ahead now that he's an owner.
I know. They're going to be even more cautious.
Yeah.
Because of the past. Yeah.
This guy's been beating their brains out for 20 years. You think they're going to care about him? They don't care.
No, they're not going to give him a pass. No. If anything, they're going to be more watchful.
Yeah.
All right, I want to play this for you. The Steelers are going to make a quarterback change. It's going to make for fascinating Sunday Night Football. Davante Adams is now with the Jets. They're a disaster. The Jets are going to be in Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers, who will have Russell Wilson. Here is Mike Tomlin on that decision.
Justin has been really good, and we've been really good at times, but not to be confused with great. Man, this is a competitive league, man. We're trying to position ourselves to be that team. And we got a player with talent who hadn't had an opportunity to play, so we're going to potentially explore those things. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with what Justin has done or has not done. Justin has been an asset to us, man. Last week, for example, man, his ability to utilize his legs by design and by ad-lib was a significant component of that game. He rushed for 50-plus yards and 2 touchdowns in game. And so we're appreciative of that. We're appreciative of how he's taking care of the ball. But we're just looking at all the people at our disposal the same way that we do at any position.
What do you think about the decision here by Tomlin?
I just think that the timing is not great because they're 4-2. They just came off a win, right? I know it's the Raiders, but they smacked them around by 19 points. So we were talking about this, Chad, right? Where anything Russell Wilson does wrong in his very first game with a brand new team against a pretty good defense is going to be nitpicked to the nth degree. And people are going to act like Justin Fields is putting up crazy numbers when he wasn't, but the team was winning. And so, seriously, if they go 3-and-out on their first drive, I wouldn't be shocked if you hear home fans booing Russell Wilson. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I think Russ is a better quarterback than Justin Fields. Some would disagree with that. But as Tomlin said right there, they've been good. They haven't been great. And I don't think Justin Fields is a good passer at all. And I think Russ adds that dimension. I just think the timing isn't good because they've been winning. And so if Russ doesn't play well, everyone's going to question the decision. Like, why would you tinker with something that was working where you're winning games?
How do you see it, Godfather?
Well, I think, number one, they see things we don't see in terms of how bad the other guy was. And I think they're seeing some of that. And he knows he can't get where he wants to be unless he switches. And I think he probably feels, and he's pretty sure of himself, as you know, he feels they have a better chance of beating the Jets with Russ playing than they do with Fields playing.
Yeah.
And as simple as that for him.
Right.
You know, and whatever happens, happens. And he's not concerned about that because he doesn't care what anyone else thinks anyway. He's going to do what's best for his football team. And I think that's the way he thinks, and that's the way he coaches his team. So, you know, I kind of go with him because I think he's a pretty good coach and a pretty smart guy.
I agree with what you're saying. I just think that Justin Fields in what would be Game 7 versus Russell Wilson in Game 1.
Yeah.
Is there a big difference between Russ and Fields? Probably not. And the other thing is how it looks, how it feels, right? There's going to be this feeling if Russ struggles even a little bit, maybe not by leaps and bounds, but he struggles a little bit here and there.
Yeah.
There's going to be this feeling and this sense of why did he do this? Well, I think there's a better spot. He's being proactive.
Who's having that feeling, though? The media, the fans?
I think players.
I
think
don't know about
teammates.
that.
I think for sure fans. I think
for sure fans, he doesn't care about that.
No.
I think he cares about his players, and I wouldn't be surprised if the players are saying, we got to go with Russ.
That's
this
true.
kid's not going to get it
But
done.
if it goes like this, if Russ goes out and struggles and they lose, because Fields is so beloved by his teammates, that's where you could create some separation in the locker room.
Yeah, maybe.
right. Yeah, that's the thing is, I just think there's a better spot. Best case scenario would be, let's say you're Tomlin and you're like, look, man, Fields is limited. I think Russ gives us a better chance to win.
Mm-hmm.
Best case scenario, if you stuck with Fields, is that he doesn't play all that well against the Jets, yet they still win the game. And it's like, okay, you guys saw it. Like, we need more from this offense. And then they make this transition.
You're still dealing with the same thing because they've just won another game.
It's pretty similar. I mean, I can't say best case scenario is Fields sucks and they lose by 10 points. Like, you don't want to lose games. It's a tough spot to be in.
Yeah.
But I just think anything that Russ does, even slightly wrong, there's going to be this overwhelming feeling of why would we try to fix something that wasn't broken? Because they were 4-2.
Yeah.
All right, this is how the Sunday sets up, and this is beautiful. We got a morning game that's big time. We've got the Lions at the Vikings. Then we got the afternoon game, 49ers and Chiefs from Levi's. And then the Sunday night game with the Jets and Steelers we were just talking about. So I love how it sets up. Morning, afternoon, night, must-see football. What do you think about the Vikes and the Lions?
It's a great matchup. I just love how the three best matchups, Vikes hosting the Lions. We've got the Texans at the Packers. The Super Bowl rematch, if you say that, with the Chiefs and the Niners, none on prime time. Three great games are not in prime time. That's funny to me, but hey, shout out to Fox and CBS. They need big games as well.
You would think they'd want to flex the 49ers and Chiefs into primetime somehow.
You would think, right? But we didn't get there. Listen, the Vikings, I think this. The Lions were really impressive last week, but this is such a step up in weight class defensively. The Lions smacked around the Cowboys, who are banged up and bad on defense.
Very much so.
And the week before that, they smacked around the Seahawks, who are banged up and recently bad on defense. That's not what the Vikings are. And so you look at the pressure that they can put on the quarterback. Jared Goff is not good in those spots, not great on the road either. I think it sets up well for the Vikings. But I think one of the big ingredients of their success is getting out to early leads. They have not had to come from behind with Sam Darnold. So I like their chances to get out to an early lead. I don't love them as much as a come from behind team.
Yeah.
But I think they have a great chance to get out to an early lead. I like the Vikings in that spot.
How much more do the Vikings have to do before you consider them a legit contender in the NFC? What more would you need to see?
Nothing. I'm there. Like the NFC is not a gauntlet with that defense. With Darnold playing respectable football, I mean, with weapons to throw to.
Yeah, because he doesn't have to be Mahomes out there.
They're certainly in the mix. Flores, man, when they've got 11 interceptions on the year. They're leading the league, and they're coming off a bye week. They haven't even played all 6 games, right? And they're still leading the league in interceptions. They put a lot of pressure on you. They give you a lot of looks. Purdy threw 2 interceptions. C.J. Stroud threw 2 interceptions against them. When you're turning over quarterbacks of that caliber like that, like you're doing some special things defensively.
Of those 3 games, which one is the hardest for you to handicap?
Oh, man. Of the 3, probably Chiefs-Niners.
Yeah.
I would say that one because I think it's a good spot for the Chiefs to finally take an L. But they're off a bye. We know about Andy Reid off the bye week, right? Pretty good. And they just do enough well where if you slip up just a little bit, that could be all it takes. So that's a tough game. I could absolutely see that game going either way. I would lean Niners, but, man, the Chiefs are so good off a bye, and they put so much pressure on you. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they're 6-0.
Yeah. The Niners are getting guys back now. It looks like they're kind of coming back. They're not going to get their best running back for a while, but at least all the other pieces seem to be coming back.
Yeah, that's the thing. When you look at Steve Spagnuolo, what he does defensively, it's a lot like Belichick. He's not going to let you beat him doing what you do best offensively.
Right. He's going to take it away.
But ask yourself, who's that guy? What do the Niners, who's their main guy? Is it Ayuk? Is it Debo? Is it Kittle? You don't have to worry about McCaffrey like you're saying. But even with those other three guys, who's the guy? And that's where the Niners are really dangerous because they've got multiple dudes.
They can run the football too, which is, I'm assuming now, depending on who's healthy in their backfield, because even the second string guy has been hurt. So I don't know who's playing back there. But.
Yeah, but then, man, you go back to the scheme too. Sometimes it doesn't even really matter. You're not going to get CMC level production. He's special.
You can run for 80 yards against.
Yeah, you're still going to get production. Yeah.
But I do love the game where the 49ers are coming off the Thursday night game, Chiefs off a bye, so at least both teams have ample time to prepare. It should set up for a good game. I feel like it's a big game for the 49ers based on losing the Super Bowl. And for Brock Purdy, they need kind of a statement game with the early season struggles.
Yeah.
I think it would be a bad look for them to go out there and flounder and then lose to the Chiefs again.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that there's no shame losing to the Chiefs.
No.
But if they do, they're 3-4.
Yeah.
They got a losing record.
That's not good.
No.
Not for where they want to get to. Plus, they probably don't want to play a late January game in Detroit.
Right. Yeah, that's right. Exactly. That made a big difference being at home against the Lions.
100%.
Yeah. Imagine if that's in a madhouse at
they
Ford
don't come
Field.
back. Yeah.
That'd be tough.
They don't come back. Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. I'm looking forward to that game. I respect the Chiefs so much because they haven't played great football yet, but because they do a lot of little things well, they can find a way to win close games. They're a mark of a good team. We're going to find ways to win even when we don't have our best stuff, and they haven't had their best stuff yet.
I know. It's wild. And just to look at Mahomes and his numbers.
Yeah, they're brutal. Fantasy guys are so mad.
It's insane, man. It
Crazy.
really is. Same number of touchdowns as interceptions. It's like, what are we doing at this point? But we all know how special he is. It's just crazy to see his numbers like that.
Yeah, he's at that stage now where because he wins and he's a proven winner, even in stretches where he doesn't put up big numbers, he gets the benefit of the doubt. It's like, oh, he's figuring it out.
Right. And that's the thing is he doesn't have to throw for 350 and gaudy numbers. It could be like the game against the Chargers where you lose Rashee Rice.
Yeah.
And he just does enough.
Just enough. And when they got the ball, the Chargers had their chance. They stall out on fourth down, and then you knew that at that point the Chiefs had him right where they wanted him.
I know. How crazy was that? Where I can't remember who was – I thought he picked up the first down inside the 5-yard line. I can't remember who the receiver was, but they didn't get the spot. They didn't challenge it. They don't convert. That's all it took.
Yeah, they put Herbert in shotgun, who's not mobile, with no back with him, denoting pass, and then it was brutal.
That was brutal, man.
Very un-Harbaugh-like in that situation.
I know it. The ground and pound Chargers are like, yeah, let's throw it on 4th and short. How about it?
And the Broncos paid the price for that because he ground and pounded them for basically 60 minutes last week. A horrific football game.
That was rough for your guys.
Gosh, it's so bad.
Yeah.
Just when you start to get excited, you're like, oh, yeah, our offense sucks.
That's a tough watch.
I'm glad we have a genius calling plays for us, so that helps. All right, we got more with Noe on Fox Sports Radio. I hate that. In sports, we throw out all these terms loosely now. It's like, oh, he's a genius. Well, I haven't seen any genius offense this year from Sean Payton with his hand-picked quarterback. Whatever.
Yeah, you got to be patient, Chad. You got to give it a little bit of time.
I know. I got to remind myself of that. It's like, no, take myself back to the mid-'80s. Like, quarterbacks need time to develop. It's okay.
Give it a little bit of time.
Unless you're Jaden Daniels and you're just freaking money from the start.
Well, then there's that, too.
Yeah,
there's that. Makes it a little bit tougher to take.
All right. We got more with Noe coming up next. Well, I just found out that Noe and I share something else in common. We both grew up as St. Louis Cardinal fans back in the 80s with Whitey Herzog and Ozzie Smith and the entire crew.
That's right, man. I didn't know you shed tears because of the Redbirds. That was a beautiful moment.
I think the first sports experience that made little Chad cry was a Dinkinger call with that stupid Kansas City Royals series.
Because I like crying over the umpire.
I know, because I was too young to understand how someone could make such an egregious error and get away with it. And my dad had to explain to me, like, these things happen sometimes, son.
That was brutal, man. It's a 1-0 game in the 9th inning.
Yeah.
Game 6, and the Dinkinger call, and dude, that's an all-timer right there.
Yeah. You didn't really understand that your teams, when you're younger, could actually lose in those type of moments. It was quite brutal. But, yeah, dude, I loved all that stuff. I got really upset in 87. They made it through the NLCS against the Giants, and then they ran into the Minnesota Twins, and freaking Don Baylor hit a grand slam, and a bunch of bad things happened in that series. The home team won all the games.
Yeah, I know, dude. It's crazy to think about those like 80s World Series memories and all that stuff.
It wasn't even fair. Minnesota played in that crazy dome where the sound was like worse than Autzen Stadium.
Oh.
They won. They did the same thing against the Braves. They won all the home games, lost all the road games.
In those two
you couldn't
series,
beat them.
Yeah.
They were 8-0 at home in those two World Series.
Yeah, you couldn't beat them in that ballpark. It was
With
crazy.
Kirby and like 1-0 games.
Herbeck.
And,
Yeah.
Those memories, those ones from when you're younger, they stick with you forever, man.
They really do.
That was Jack Buck. And we'll see you tomorrow.
I love when Joe Buck did the same thing.
Tribute to his dad.
2011, that was amazing, too.
But, dude,
was
back
really
then
cool.
it was so cool when you were young because you would, these characters like Ozzie Smith and these guys, like, they were larger than life characters. And then you would get a package of ball cards and you'd open it up with the gum and you'd flip through and find your guy and it had the stats on the back. Like, those were the days, man.
They were. That's the thing, man. When you're a kid and you're obsessing over this stuff, man.
So good.
It's like sports, music at that time. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a different phase of your life. But when you're a kid and developing like that, it's just different.
So, dude, that 88 year with Notre Dame must have been pretty awesome for you then.
Yeah.
With Tony Rice.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And those years, man, like 88, 89, like from 88 to 91, Notre Dame was really good. They were number 1 in the country in 93.
Oh,
so
and
really,
then they lost to Boston College after beating Florida State.
You talk about just a hideous memory, man.
With Charlie Ward.
No, yeah,
they beat Charlie Ward.
They beat Charlie Ward,
and it was McDougal was their quarterback.
Yeah,
right?
Kevin McDougal. There you go. Very nice. And yeah, he hit Lake Dawson, my guy, in the back of the end zone on 4th and 10. And then just went to hell.
Glenn Foley?
Yeah. Dean Lytle had a personal foul penalty because he hit the guy on the kickoff and then kind of like pushed himself off of the guy. Pete Bursich should have had the interception. And then, Boston College nailed the field goal. How about that? It was Tom Coughlin coaching that Boston College team. Crazy.
That was painful. I just watched the Catholics versus Conflicts 30 for 30 again the other night. It's so freaking awesome.
It really is. It's a great doc. And, man, that rivalry at that time, that was like late 80s, early 90s. By the way, what a hideous call that Notre Dame benefited from.
On the Cleveland Gary fumble?
Oh, my gosh.
But Miami benefited, too, because that catch to put him in a position for the two was not a catch.
Not a catch at all.
Yeah.
That's like, again, when anyone's like, I think replay actually ruined. Take a look at the 85 World Series. Take a look at the 88 Notre Dame-Miami game. Like, it's not ruining everything.
Still to this day, in my lifetime, that game, Miami and Notre Dame, 88, it's still the best college football game I've ever seen.
It was an amazing game. There's no doubt about it.
And then they went to the title game, played West Virginia in the Fiesta Bowl, and that's when they had Major Harris, who was a Heisman candidate.
That's right. Yeah.
And I remember Beano Cook, he's like,
oh.
Because he loved Notre Dame.
The University of Notre Dame.
The two underdogs that you never bet against, the Russian Army and Notre Dame. And I used to love that stuff because he was great. But I remember he was a big fan of West Virginia that year too. But he's like, I love West Virginia and Major Harris, but I just don't think they have the material to win this football game. Go Irish.
That's a good impression. Bino was great, man.
Yeah.
He was so much fun.
Gosh, the childhood. Like, who were your teams when you were young? Like, who were your athletes or guys that you followed when you were little, Godfather?
In any sport?
Any sport.
My gosh. Well, I liked the Dodgers as a kid. I was a big
Like Koufax.
Koufax, Drysdale, and then those teams as they grew up. I mean, that whole team later, including Lasorda, was at Spokane in the Pacific Coast League. So we got to see all those guys, Say and Russell and Lopes and Garvey and the catchers, all of them, Yeager. They all came through the PCL, so you knew them all before they got to the big leagues. And yeah, I was a huge Dodger fan until they wouldn't extend Garvey and they screwed Garvey on his contract and let him walk, and that really upset me.
So I've got two funny Ronsay stories for you.
The Penguin.
Penguin,
yeah. The first one, not that great.
That's my buddy Steve's favorite Dodger of all time. He loves the Penguin.
I got a story on him too. Go ahead.
My first Little League baseball mitt, you know how, and it wasn't actually signed by him. It wasn't an autograph.
No, but you have the name in there.
Ronsay. That was my Little League baseball mitt. But the funny thing was, I interviewed him when I was doing the show here in Portland.
Awesome.
Really?
And out of nowhere, it had to be a commercial break. And he goes, "Yeah, so who's got the guns?" He was just talking about like the unrest in the city.
Really?
And Eric Ringering and I were kind of paused like, wait a minute, what's the right answer? Because that's a question that could go sideways real fast. But it was just so funny. We would just replay that like, hey, who's got the guns?
See, I first saw him when he was playing for a semi-pro team out at Tacoma called the Cheney Studs. He had played college ball at Washington State, I think. And he came to Portland in a tournament and played at Scavone Field in southeast Portland. Ronsay is playing as a college kid. And I'm in the stands with a bunch of my buddies. He was the funniest looking little guy you ever saw.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. I was on his ass for 7 innings.
Oh, yeah.
From sitting up in the stands. He tried to get at me. He tried to get up there.
Really?
Yeah, it was classic.
You were just heckling the guy.
A lot of my buddies would remember that. Yo, I heckled him. Something awful. It was great. Because I knew the guys on the team he was playing. So, yeah, I felt it was my job to heckle him.
By the way, super fast story. So I was at a Cubs game. Cardinals were playing there. We're in the bleachers. The bleacher bums are all over the late Darryl Kyle, pitcher that passed away.
Mm-hmm.
And after a while, Darryl Kyle yelled at the fan. He was like, "Hey, did you play Little League?" And the fan was like, "Yeah." And he just paused and he goes, "Huh, you must have sucked." And the fan didn't say anything. The fan was like, I'm supposed to heckle you. I got no comeback. Great.
It goes by too fast. The time when you're in here, Bino.
Oh, dude, love hanging with you guys.
All right, we'll get him back in here next week. Big thanks to Michael Shacker. And, of course, Ben Golliver. We'll talk to you tomorrow here on the Rip City Drive at 3. Great Ronsay, man.
The Penguin. I can't remember what was going on, man. I can't remember if that was... It was after, like, the...
It must have been during the riots.
And it was shortly after that. And I just out of nowhere, he was like, "So who's got the guns?" And we were like, right? Like,
the black people.
Yeah. It was just such a random question. Because anyone who asks